Let us pray. In this province, we ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and that will promote the interest of our people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat U gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en al ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat U ons sal help om al ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan U op te dra. Sikelela ilizwe letu na bantu balo umusile ukulungo kwepondo letu. Kosi sikelela Afrika, kina abantwana bayo, kokela inkokeli zayo, geniki uxolo Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. I now request honourable members to remain standing as we observe a moment of silence in memory of the school children who tragically lost life on Tuesday, the 30th of May. Our thoughts and prayers are with their families and loved ones. Please be seated.
Speaker.
Honourable Dagmo, is that a point of order?
Yes, thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, we welcome the moment of silence for the victims of the tragic car crash near Mitchell's Plain. But I want to put on record that about 2 or 3 weeks ago, 5 children from one family in Mossel Bay died on our roads. I find it insensitive that in that motion of condolences, we do not refer to those children. I would just like to put that on record.
Actually, it was a point of order, has been noted, and will reflect in the minutes of the proceedings. I will now proceed, honourable members. I would like to remind honourable members of some of the logistical arrangements. As has been the practice to date, honourable members who participate in the sitting of the House from both the chamber with the presiding officer and table staff and via Microsoft Teams. Our standing rules have been amended to accommodate such hybrid sittings of the WCPP. Honourable members experiencing challenges in connecting to this sitting are requested to contact the WCPP ICT colleagues who will assist to resolve these connectivity challenges. Honourable members, the quorum requirements for the sitting of the House are provided for in the Constitution and the standing rules. Unless there is an indication of concurrence, voting will be confined to members present in the House and on the hybrid on the 11th of August 2020. Members present in the chamber and via Microsoft Teams have all the privileges and immunities imparted by law. Members who are considered out of order by the presiding officer will have their microphones muted and called to order. The Sergeant at Arms have recorded members' attendance. In instances where directives not covered for a particular eventuality, the standing rules will apply. In instances where the rules cannot be applied, the ruling by the presiding officer is final. Honourable members, all minds have been had point of order, and I will recognise you. When an honourable member in the chamber wishes to raise a point of order, such an honourable member may address the presiding officer as expected, but must mute their microphones when they have completed speaking. Honourable members, you are requested to please ensure that your microphones are unmuted when the presiding officer recognises you, and when you're done speaking, to please mute your microphones. The media have also been granted access to the MS Teams meeting as guests of the WCPP. I would like to remind members of the media that you may not use the chat room or speak or activate your cameras while the sitting is in progress. If an individual who is not a member of this House activates the microphone and video camera, such a member will be exited from the sitting immediately. I request that those here today who are not members in the gallery to please observe the decorum of the House. For the sitting, language translation services are available in the chamber as usual and on Microsoft Teams via the respective channels. Honourable members participating in the sitting of the House must please access the language translation services via a second device. Honourable members, I would like to remind you that no interjections are permitted during these hybrid sittings, and to this end, I would like to draw your attention to Rule 40 of our standing rules. With that being said, honourable members, I now recognise the Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Speaker, notwithstanding the provisions of Rule 20, Section 1, that deals with the sequence of proceedings, that precedence be given in the following order: for the House to deal with a motion in terms of Rule 151, Section 2, as part of the order paper in the name of the Honourable C. Murray, and as agreed in the Programming Authority to afford the 3-minute declaration per party as they so wish, Honourable Speaker, and then subsequently deal with the subject for discussion. I so move, Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chief Whip. Honourable members, are there any objections to the motion? No objections. Agreed to. Honourable members, the next item on the order paper is in the name of the Honourable C. Murray. I have been informed by the Chief Whip that the Programming Authority resolved that there would be no list of speakers, and that parties who wish to make, my apologies, and that parties who wish to do so will now be afforded an opportunity to make a declaration for a maximum minutes. I will now afford the individual parties an opportunity to do so. I now recognise the ANC. Honourable Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to request that we pass the stage. Honourable Khalid is having challenges with his laptop.
All right, no problem. I'm going to, from the chair, make the ruling that I'm going to continue. And if Honourable Syed joins, I will provide him with an opportunity to do so. I now see the EFF.
No declaration in the EFF. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see good. Honourable de Villiers. Just for the record, there's no declaration from good. The ACDP.
Thank you, Speaker. I think this topic is very important. We discussed it last week, and it's important to note that the ACDP fully support the AGOA thing, and that's Africa have preferential treatment. According to this, Speaker, this is so important and critical, and I don't think that anybody can debate against this. We need this, and we need to protect it with everything we have. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Christians. And I see the Freedom Front Plus.
Speaker, ek dink hierdie saak is al horig gery. So ek sal nie 'n verklaring maak nie. Ons almal weet presies wat die situasie is Die Vryheidsfront stem saam, ja. Ons moet asseblief ons verbintenis met die Verenigde State behou en ons moet optree op 'n staatsmanskap manier.
Thank you very much, Honourable Murray. I now recognize Al-Jamar.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Speaker, no declaration from Al-Jamar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Brinkhuis. Can I just check before I give Honourable Murray an opportunity? Is Honourable Said online? All right. I don't get an indication, so I'm going to continue, Chief Whip. I now recognize Honourable Murray. Oh, my apologies. Just for the record, I recognize the DA. I assume it's Honourable Murray because the motion is in her name.
Thank you, Speaker. Yes. Honourable Speaker, I rise today to address the urgent issue of South Africa's inclusion in the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which we all know as AGOA. As the representatives of 7.2 million people in the Western Cape, we, the members of this provincial parliament, should be deeply concerned by the lack of urgency shown by the national government in securing our country's participation in this vital trade agreement. AGOA has played a crucial role in granting African countries, including South Africa, preferential access to the extensive US market. However, our continued participation in AGOA is now uncertain due to disorganized and inadequate efforts to engage with the United States. This is compounded by the disastrous foreign policy regarding Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The significance of AGOA to our economy, particularly in the Western Cape, cannot be overstated. It has been a lifeline for industries such as agriculture, automotive, metals, and jewelry. The value of South Africa's AGOA-eligible exports has grown from $417 million in 2001 to a whopping $1.9 billion in 2021, with 5 of the top 10 South African exports to the US originating from our province alone. To address this critical issue, I have tabled a resolution that encompasses the concerns and aspirations of the Western Cape. This resolution highlights the economic development and job creation provided by AGOA. It acknowledges the ongoing challenge of unemployment in our province and recognizes the benefits South Africa has derived from this act. It also notes the posed risk by the national government's foreign policy decisions and emphasizes the province's concurrent area of trade as per our constitution. Therefore, Speaker, I move that this House resolves to reaffirm the friendship and important economic and trade ties between the USA and the Western Cape, that the House supports and actively lobbies for the reauthorization of AGOA in 2025, calls on the President to urgently engage with the US to ensure South Africa's inclusion in AGOA once again, calls on the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition to make every effort to negotiate in good faith towards the reauthorization of AGOA on behalf of the Western Cape, and emphasizes as well as commits to strengthening the strong bilateral ties between this province and the USA. Speaker, I humbly request the support of all members of this House in endorsing this declaration. It serves the interests of growing our economy and creating much needed jobs for all of our residents in this province. I so move.
Thank you, Honourable Murray. Before I put the question to the House, Honourable Said, I'm going to allow you an opportunity, if you so wish.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, for your indulgence. Speaker, the place where this particular motion comes from would be funny if it was not so sad. Last week, we tried our utmost to caution the DA's Honourable Murray to not get ahead of herself and bite off more than she can chew. It seems she declined to take our advice. In last week's debate, the ANC did not fall into the Honourable Murray's trap. And even worse still, the Honourable Murray misconstrues the ANC's and therefore South Africa's foreign policy. Maybe we should be a bit more explicit The Honorable Murray must go and study South African foreign policy first and not read tabloid articles on it or listen to the gossip of her peers. Yet what the Honorable Murray is really doing with this motion is confirming that she is singing for the DA supper from right-wing Republicans in the United States of America. The DA and the Honorable Murray wanted us to reject and turn our backs on our US partners, notwithstanding our sharp differences with them. The ANC will never do that. We value our trade with the United States. We hold our relationship with the US in high regard, and we will continue to work with the US ambassador, despite the Honorable MEC Mayor misconstruing the conversation between himself and the ambassador, which was held in confidence, I'm sure. We know the views of the ambassador, and we will not use our discussions with him and or his staff for political expediency, as the Honorable Mayor and the DA does. In fact, I will be contacting the US consulate in Cape Town to inform them of the breach of confidence by the Honorable Mayor and advise the US consulate that the DA and its federal chairperson cares little for confidence. In fact, he will even use confidential discussions to hit the ANC. That is all he and the DA cares about. Honorable Speaker, the ANC would support this motion if the line, and I quote, notes that the ANC's foreign policy, through their support of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, is putting South Africa's inclusion in any renewal of AGOA at risk, close quote. If that particular quote is deleted because it is simply not true, Honorable Murray must read foreign policy and not tabloids. So we decline to support this motion. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Syed. Honorable members, I have to announce that there are currently 30 honorable members present and entitled to vote, and the House is therefore quorate. The question put before the House is that the motion be adopted. Are there any objections to the motion being adopted?
Object.
Thank you very much. So there is an objection. Honorable members, I now put those in favor of the motion being adopted, please say aye. Aye. Those not in favor of the motion being approved, please say no.
No.
No. Honorable members, I think the ayes have it. Therefore, the question put before the House is being approved and the motion being approved. Thank you very much, honorable members. We will now deal with the subject for the discussion. Honorable members, we are past that part of the order paper. We are now for discussion in the name of the Honorable T.M. Class as printed on the order paper. I recognize the Honorable Class.
Molo somlomo. Bulise kunye nepremier, bulise neministers, nabo bonke abalapha kakhulu, ndibonge uJulius Selomalema usinika amandla basibe lapha. The issue of the land remains cardinal pillar number 1 in the EFF, and like the rest of the other 6 cardinal pillars, it is non-negotiable. In the EFF, when we speak about the access of land for black people, it will always refer to the extended definition, which includes Africans, Coloureds, Indians, just to mention a few. Speaker, the Democratic Alliance and Freedom Front Plus still believe in the notion of divide and conquer in order to separate black people and make sure that the status quo of landless remain intact. That is why not long we had a member of this House telling us that black people are foreigners in this province, much to the excitement of the DA, as if Western Cape does not form part of South Africa. Speaker,
Order,
today
members.
they go around tabling pleas such
Order.
as Western Cape Powers Bill, which indirectly aims to usurp those powers reserved for national government in their scheming way of attempting to separate Western Cape to the rest of South Africa. Speaker, according to 2019 National Land Audit Report, more than 2.57 million hectares of agricultural land is in Western Cape, and was in the hands of the white people, whilst black people only owned more than 53,000 hectares, colored owned more than 561,000 hectares, and Indians 195,000 hectares, respectively. So even we combine all non-white agricultural land owners, their ownership of land cannot even reach 50%, despite accounting for the large part of population. Speaker, in 2023, dispute agriculture land ownership remained more or less than same, even under the Western Cape Agriculture MEC, who happen to fall under extension definition of what constitute being black. So there's no transformation in this sector when it comes to the land ownership whatsoever. When it comes to the residential land, the problem remains the same with the housing backlog of more than 500,000. This means that black people in township will continue to be crammed in those small yards with limited space and backyard shacks. Speaker, when it comes to matter involving land, the DA provincial government makes sure that they put non-whites in those Department of Agriculture and Infrastructure so that no one blame white people when things go wrong and when there is a lack of transformation. Speaker, there is also no transformation when it comes to the issue of spatial planning in the Western Cape. The Department of Infrastructure continue make housing development in areas and parcels of land which are too remote from places of businesses. When questions are being posed, why are the social housing development in inner central business district? CBD.
Order, members. There's a member on the floor.
We are being told that land is expensive. However, the same potential government will go out its way to litigate against an opportunity to turn Tafelberg area into a social housing opportunity. Arbar Speaker, die swart brein en Indiese mense van hierdie provincial geval in hulle gebruik nou van ons eie mense deur hulle in magposisie te plaas en vir hulle te sê om nie betrokke te raak by enige aktiwiteit of programme wat sal lei tot transformasie van hulle eie mense. Dankie.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Klaas. I now recognize the Honorable Maseko.
Speaker, thank you very much. And I just want to respond a bit to Honorable Member Klaas. Honorable Member Klaas, through you, Speaker, has never been in government, will never be in government, doesn't even have a clue of how to deal with the issue of land reform.
Order.
And the least he can do for today.
Honorable members, please take your seat. Honorable Maseko. Honorable Syed, is that a point of order?
Yes,
order, members.
Honorable Speaker, that's a point. That's
honorable members, just give me one. Honorable members, there's a member on the floor. Honorable Syed is on the floor on a point of order. Can I please ask you to allow the member on the floor? Honorable Syed.
Point of order, Speaker. Is it parliamentary for the Honorable Maseko to mislead the House? The EFF are in government in the country and in municipalities. Thank you.
Honorable Syed, please take a seat. That is not a point of order. Honorable Maseko, you may continue.
Speaker, in this province that is best run, and I mean statistics shows all the time.
Order, members. Honorable members, both on my left and right hand side. This is order, members. This is a political debate, so I'm providing you with a little bit of leeway. Interjections are allowed, but please do not drown out the speaker or continue in running commentary. Honourable Maseko, you may continue.
Thank you very much. Speaker, I think Honorable Member Class is being disadvantaged to listen how the government can be run by the ANC. And it's unfair to him because Honorable Member, I mean, he's in my committee and all the time he listens when we are on the road, on the public hearing, to listen to what our communities are saying. So if he can be allowed to listen to us who are in government, best run province in this country, what are we saying about the land reform? So
Order,
through
members.
you, Speaker.
Order, members.
Thabo Mbeki once said, and I quote, "Land is the key to our future. It is the foundation of our economy and our society.
Why do you keep on
It is
quoting
also the
our
key to our
leaders?
dignity and our freedom," close quote. The lack
Order,
of
members. Honourable members, Honourable Chief Whip, I'll recognize you now. Honourable members, the Honourable Maseko is on the floor. Can I please ask that you allow the Honourable Member to make a presentation, and for those members that's on the speakers list, you'll have an opportunity to rebut when it is your opportunity to do so. Running commentary is not allowed. Again, I don't want to curb the freedom in this House, but please do respect the member on the floor. And this is for both sides of the House. Honourable Chief Whip, is that a point of order?
Thank you very much, Speaker. I'm covered by your ruling. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable Maseko.
Thank you very much. Speaker, the lack of access to land for poor, marginalized and emerging farmers in South Africa is a major challenge. This is despite the fact that many previously disadvantaged people are interested in farming. The need for land in South Africa is rooted in historical inequalities characterized by land dispossession and concentrated ownership. Addressing land ownership and redistribution is necessary to achieve social justice, stimulating economic growth, and reducing poverty. By ensuring equitable access to land, South Africa can foster inclusive development, redress past injustices, and promote social cohesion. However, it is heartbreaking, and after 30 years, the ANC national government has not addressed the issue of land at all. As I stand here today, the ANC national government currently owns 25 million hectares of land. Yet, the ANC and its ally, the EFF, believe that the only way to tackle the issue of land is by signing into law the unconstitutional expropriation bill. Honorable Speaker, the DA wholeheartedly supports land reform, but it should be done with a fair compensation. We firmly believe that there is no need to amend Section 25 of the Constitution, as it already provides a framework for land reform and restitution. The slow pace of reform is because of the ANC's government's incompetence, corruption, and insufficient budget allocations. To tackle land reform, you don't need to amend the Constitution or sign a constitutional bill that will achieve nothing. You need good, clean governance, sufficient budget allocations, and a genuine compassion for fixing the wrongs in South Africa. The ANC has set a target of redistributing 30% of land by 2030, while currently they've achieved only 4% of land that is owned by previously disadvantaged individuals. One of the major projects initiated by the ANC in post-apartheid South Africa was the restitution of District 6. which they failed so dismally so. The project was launched in 1996, but unfortunately, progress has been poor to say the least. And that was run under about 6 presidents. This project, initiated by the ANC 96, has so far cost an estimated 1 billion rand. And to this day, more than 2,000 beneficiaries are still waiting, and the ANC are still dragging their feet. The ANC's lack of progress confirms that they do not care about land distribution and housing the most vulnerable. While the ANC is focused trying to conference that should have already happened in 2019. The DA in the Western Cape has already allocated a budget of almost 10 billion for infrastructure development in the province just for this year alone. Not only will this budget go directly to building thousands of housing opportunities for our communities, but it will also be used to build new schools, hospitals, and libraries, as well as creeks. But as we all know, Honorable Speaker, what the ANC does is by corrupt and deceitful acts that create havoc and hurdles by being...
Order, members. Members, Honorable Maseko, please take your seat. Honorable members, there's a member on the floor. That is a political debate, but the running commentary on everything that the speaker on the floor is saying, and there's a rebuttal, is not allowed. Can we please respect one another? I mean, we've got 9 more speakers to get through, and if we don't stop it now, this is going to affect the decorum of the House. Can I please ask that you work with me and allow the member on the floor to continue? Honorable Maseko.
Thank you very much, Speaker. But in this DA-led province, Honorable Speaker, there are currently over 100 housing projects. A variety of stakeholders, including the provincial government, municipalities, private developers, and non-government will create more than 20,000 housing opportunities. These projects are unfortunately delayed by political parties who encourage illegal land grabs. Both the ANC and the EFF have been caught encouraging illegal land grabs in various parts of the Western Cape. I find it quite astonishing that the EFF would even suggest debating the topic of access to land when their actions directly delay housing projects in this province. Since 2013, the EFF has consistently called for land grabs, demonstrating a concerning disregard to the potential consequences of their actions. Unfortunately, the approach has not only put their lives on their own, exacerbated tensions with communities. The land grabs often result in confrontations with the South African police force, leading to a volatile and unsafe environment all involved, crippling service delivery to our most vulnerable communities. As a direct consequence
Honorable
of both
Maseko,
the
please
agency...
conclude.
Oh, Lord. I'll just go to the last paragraph. I had a lot
Honorable
to say.
Maseko, please just conclude the sentence. Honorable members, allow the member to conclude.
Honorable Speaker, the only government that has to date put its money where its mouth is the DA in the
Thank you
Western
very
Cape.
much, Honorable
I
Maseko.
thank you.
Please take your seat. Members, order members. Members, you are on the floor's time when you continue. That's not how a debate or the intention So can I please ask that for the remainder of this speakers list, that you please allow to make their presence. And if you're on the speakers list, you'll have an opportunity to rebut. Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you, Speaker. We want to thank the EFF, the subject for discussion to the House today. And as the ANC, as it's well known, we have previously raised that the key to land redistribution in the Western Cape is the Democratic Alliance. No other obstacle. And that remains the case today. Access to land for farming is but one issue. It's about access to land for human settlements, industry, small business, and also social development. The DA and Premier Windi in particular have not directed any resources to land redistribution in the Western Cape. They are fighting tooth and nail against the expropriation bill. They do not have the political will to change the unequal and discriminatory ownership pattern of agricultural land in our province. Apartheid, colonialism, and an exploitative form of racial capitalism resulted in land dispossession of the majority of people and placed it under the ownership of a racially exclusive minority. The ANC strategy around land reform is built on three pillars. Firstly, the restitution of land. Secondly, security of tenure. And thirdly, the critical issue of land redistribution. The ANC, in fact, has made positive gains in regard to land restitution. More than 80,000 claims lodged nationally, with just under 7,000 still outstanding. About 12,000 claims lodged in the Western Cape, with only 266 still outstanding. What this amounts to is 2.9 million hectares nationally, with just over 8,300 hectares in the Western Cape. Let's look at Ebenezer, Covey, Elandskloof, Beeswater, also Richmond and Ndabeni, and Tramway. These are all the result of the land restitution policy of the ANC. Our province faces serious challenges: massive housing backlogs, poverty, unemployment across most municipalities, the ongoing legacy. The facts are that less than 3% of agricultural land is owned by black farmers, African, coloured, and Indian. 3%. In the Western Cape, the patterns of urban land ownership are racially skewed. White South Africans own 70% of such urban land, coloured South Africans only 10%, Indians 8%, and Africans 3.5%. This in stark contrast to the demographics of the Western Cape. As per Census 2011, coloured people constituting 48.8%, African people 32.8%, Indian 1%, and white South Africans 15%. It is only in the Western and Northern Cape where, in regard to urban land ownership, that the historically white population own the majority of urban land. In all other provinces, the majority of urban land is owned by the black majority, African, coloured, and Indian. The DA does not hear the cries of those trying to access and develop Suizia near Grootbrak. They do not assist black farmers in Kwanungabe, Mossel Bay. They, however, do support the Stellenbosch municipalities, who continues to lease vast tracts of agricultural land to white farmers, long leases at next to nothing. They continue to ignore African and coloured farmers in Stellenbosch. That's why the DA is die groot struikelblok wanneer dit kom by grond in die Weskaap. Dis die DA, niemand of niks anders. Given that we have no political will from the DA and the crisis of landlessness is deepening, we as the ANC want to make a proposal for the way forward. Colleagues, we have a choice. We can either let the situation continue and worsen, which will deepen inequality and poverty, or we can decide to come together and enter into social compacts at district and local level to address these challenges. The current situation of access to land is the original South African sin, as described by President Ramaphosa. The violent dispossession of land of the majority of African people, First Nation people, by racist colonial powers such as the Dutch, the English, and the French. It is unsustainable. We need to work together across all spheres of government and with our communities, labor and business. The former is a recipe for conflict and violence and populist calls for land invasions. As the ANC, we propose regional and local social compacts which will identify public and private land and then release such land to those who suffered unfair discrimination under apartheid, African, colored and Indian. We have thus decided to embark on a campaign of land identification and release across the 30 municipalities and gathering information on all municipal, provincial, national and SOE land and buildings in that municipality, all existing leases of municipal land, including the duration and costs of such leases, all land owned by public and private trusts, commonage, meengrond, well-located private land which is suitable for integrated human settlements, formal agriculture, urban agriculture, arts and culture, and LED. As the leader of the opposition, I'm arranging an opportunity for our caucus to brief the Interministerial Committee on Land, which is a cabinet committee chaired by the Deputy President. Ons gaan nie wag vir Premier Windy. Soos is Colinda voor Lom Colombuso. Soos ons sal vir ewigheid wag as ons vir die agbare Windy wag. We are inviting all leaders of all political parties in this House to join the campaign for the identification and release of land to those who suffered unfair discrimination and the establishment of local social compacts. We're not going to wait for all these orders to be completed. There are farmers farming vegetables on the wetland along the N2 near Khayelitsha. This is city land. We will fight on their behalf and with these farmers for long-term lease of the wetlands farming area. There's Tafelberg, SABC Rocklands, die built Hoërskool property in George, Soweto, Power Town. All these communities that are land insecure. We urge communities across all regions to discuss these matters and come forward with proposals at local level which will advance security of tenure, speed up land restitution, and most importantly, advance land redistribution. We have seen the bold step taken by the TWK municipality in the Overberg to award a long-term lease to small-scale colored farmers. We urge other municipalities to follow this route. While the DA complains about not getting access to national land, they continue selling land, municipal land. Hulle verkoop die grond na hulle vriende. Dis wat hulle doen in die stad Kaapstad, in Mosselbaai en ander plekke. It is critical that the long-awaited expropriation bill is finalized by the National Assembly this year. Die ANC ondersteun die onteieningswetsontwerp. Die DA staan dit teen. Hulle maak swart gevaar geleide, maar hulle belieg die mense. Hulle belieg die mense. We also want to identify well-located private land. The land shall be shared amongst those who work it. There shall be security and comfort. En die beste manier om die grootste struikelblok teen grondhervorming uit die weg uit te kry, is om een besluit te maak.
Honorable Dagmore.
Die DA moet begrawe word volgende jaar en ons gaan dit doen.
Honorable Dagmore.
Amandla.
Thank you, Honorable Dagmore. Your time has expired. Honorable members, I now recognize the Honorable de Villiers. Order members. Order members. There's a member on the floor. Honorable de Villiers, you may continue.
Honorable Speaker, the Western Cape likes to compare itself favorably to other provinces. But whether you agree or not, the assessment depends on where you live. And where you live, 30 years after the end of apartheid, still largely depends on the color of your skin. If you are a person of color who works the land, you are most likely to work other people's land because you don't own land yourself. This pattern of land ownership ensures the continuation of the social, economic, and spatial exclusion of the past. Speaker, last week we discussed the importance of the benefits of AGOA. The prices of the Western Cape fruit and wine products is competitively priced on the US market. You could argue that this benefits people of color through the job creation, but it does nothing to transform structural exclusion from land and production ownership. Because farmers without land are like rugby players without the ball. They may know the game, but they are unable to play it. Speaker, we live in one of the most beautiful parts of the world, but the glitz and glamour of this well-run province hides a shamefully unaddressed pattern of exclusion that extends across from the west coast to the Garden Route. Our agricultural sector has enormous potential to expand by creating opportunities for the less fortunate through training, subsidies, and provision of land. As representative of the people, it is up to us to turn our backs on the pattern of exclusion from land that slavery, colonialism, and apartheid bequeathed, and prioritize going down that road. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable de Villiers. Order, members. Order. Order, members. Thank you, honourable members. I will now recognise the next speaker, the Honourable Minister Meyer.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I welcome this debate in this House, and I'm just very sorry that the sponsor of this debate is not here, because the model that he proposed is based on Venezuela. Thank you, Premier, for the information you sent me earlier this morning. The promise of this honourable member is based on Venezuela. What happened in Venezuela? Here is the story. They changed the constitution in 1999, exactly what the EFF wants. They expropriated it without compensation in 2011, exactly what the EFF wants. Politicians benefited from land reform, exactly what the EFF wants. There was food production decline, exactly what will happen under their system. Food shortage will happen, exactly as they foresee. Food queues will happen all over South Africa. This is what will happen if we implement that. More riots will happen as it happened in Venezuela, but more importantly, food trucks will be hijacked as a result of the food shortages. What happened in Venezuela, it cannot happen in South Africa. They brought in the army in Venezuela to distribute the food. This cannot happen in South Africa. Army had to distribute food, nobody on the borders, so you can imagine what happened there. Total collapse of the economy in Venezuela, and the net result, honourable members, 1 million percentage of inflation. This is not the model that we want to promote, but we welcome this debate, Honourable Speaker, because in the Western Cape government and the Democratic Alliance, we support land reform. We must have land reform. South Africa to succeed, we must have land reform, and we must have it because this is the only viable solution. But we all know, as the Premier has indicated in his comments here, it is the responsibility of the National Department, and they have absolutely abdicated their responsibility. And I am concerned because this is now clearly tied to food production and food security. We cannot go down the road of Venezuela. Honourable Speaker, the DA do not support the land grabbing of the honourable member of that side of the House. Grab the land because that is greedy, thieving of corrupt ANC, whose version of land reform we have seen firsthand with Ivan Kluter at Colenso, where they wanted, the ANC wanted to grab the land and give it to an ANC comrade. That's the model of land reform, not going to happen in the Western Cape. I went there and I made sure that it is being stopped. Not going to happen here.
Order, members.
Honourable members,
Order,
I think
members.
we know what the ANC model is. It is accumulation of wealth of the privileged few, not empowering the poor, and we certainly cannot support this. But, Honourable Speaker, the national government's attempt to achieve land reform and land use has been a spectacular disaster. The former Minister of Land Reform, Mr. Kunti, he's put on record that he said my government's land reform project is a 100% failure. Now, if your minister that is responsible for managing it make that statement, it is clear the ANC have failed in land reform. This process has not been very successful. And so
Order,
we
members.
know...
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable Chief Whip of the Opposition, is that a point of order?
I just want to ask the MEC to speak softer, please.
That is not a point of order, Honourable Chief Whip. Honourable Minister, you may continue, but before you continue, Honourable Members, can I please again caution you that running commentary is not allowed. And it's not for the speaker on the floor to raise his or her voice in order to become audible because you are drowning out the speaker. That is not parliamentary. So can I please ask that you do not force the speaker to drown by your running commentary, drowning out the speaker. Honourable Minister, you may continue.
Well, thank you, Honourable Chief Whip of the Official Opposition. I'll speak softer. Because the ANC's model of land reform is like this. They want to take your property without compensation. You don't own it, you rent it. The state owns your property and you become landless. What a failure. And so there's an alternative. The Democratic Alliance says, keep your property. We respect your investment. Successful land reform, you must own your property. You must not rent the property. You must receive title deeds and you become the landowner. And so, Honourable Speaker, we are following a different approach. It's called a commodity approach for land reform. We established this in 2009 under the DA government. We make sure that there are institutional arrangements because we can shout here and make noises. Ultimately, we have to put people on the land so that they can farm the land. And so we use an institutional framework, a commodity approach, and so we have seen some outcomes. And so, Honourable Speaker, we create an ecosystem of support to new farmers through market access. I want people that have land, they must successful farm, they must have market access. We must give them mentorship, skills development based on the existing commodity networks. The department uses this approach to deliver targeted interventions followed by agricultural extension advisory services, and we see positive outcomes for land reform. Through this approach, Honourable Speaker, the deciduous fruit sector was awarded 120 million rand from the Job Fund for the commercialization of 20 black commercial farmers. We support them, export the stuff, that's what we want. In fact, it's much more what the national government has set aside for black farmers in this province. Since 2015, it aims at establishing 300 hectares of fruit trees up to 2029, and it created 500 new jobs within the fruit industry. And at the end of the program, over 200 million rand had been invested in the deciduous fruit sector for land reform. And so we will continue. But I think everything that this government does must be measured. And so we put up our land reform system in the Western Cape up for independent evaluation, not by this government. And in 2019, the evaluation confirmed 72% success based on 5 critical factors: access to market, compliance with labor law and tax laws, extent to which business reinvests in profits, and the existence of sales and production records, and the existence of a current updated business plan. This is a model that works. This is the model that we are promoting in the Western Cape. This is the model where we see the results and the key benefits of the commodity approach. And I think colleagues on that side of the House support the commodity approach to land reform. That are the commodity organizations to assist in terms of the struggling land reform projects. And we support the process that work with commodities organization and mentoring. And we also look at proper selecting of the beneficiaries. So the Western Cape Department of Agriculture is also responsible for skills audit of farmers, training of farmers, compulsory on-site visits, market readiness for training, access to markets, value adding to products, financial record keeping, product record keeping, the appointment of mentors in conjunction with the commodity partners. Honourable Speaker, the Western Cape Department of Agriculture also collaborates with the PELS initiative, and members are aware of this side. I'm so happy that side of the House supports this initiative because it's a private-led land reform initiative. I'm so sorry, my friend, the Honourable Member Klaas is not here. He sponsored the debate, then he runs away from his own debate, Honourable Speaker. Given the limited budget allocation for land reform in the Western Cape, we welcome and appreciate the PELS system. Honourable Speaker, while the ANC government claims to be very serious about land reform, their budget, the allocation, reflects a completely different story. And so, Honourable Speaker, our land reform model works and it is continuing to work.
Honourable Minister, your time has expired. Please conclude.
I want to conclude, Honourable Speaker, to say that there are two models of land reform. One that says the government own the land and you must rent it.
Thank you,
The
Honourable
second
Minister.
one model says
Minister,
you
please
must
take your
own
seat.
it, and we believe
Thank you very much.
people must
Minister,
own
your
the
time
land.
has expired.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I now recognise the Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I also want to thank Honourable Klaas of the EFF who sponsored this debate, namely lack of access to the land for the poor, marginalised, emerging black farmers, including African, coloured and Indian in the Western Cape. But Speaker, we know that land reform is important and it must happen. But Speaker, this seems like to everybody, this seems like a very noble gesture by the EFF. But the fact is, they're talking about access, but not ownership. Because the EFF leader is on record, speaking in Cape Town, saying when the EFF governs, all land must belong to the state. So everybody will be landless. Everybody will not own any property. So the question is this a noble debate or is this playing with words? I think the EFF is playing with words. And the important thing is, I want to inform the voters of the Western Cape, I want to inform the voters of Africa, under EFF rule, you will have no property, you will have nothing, and you will not have inheritance to your children. So, Speaker, I want to say this is a policy position of the EFF to take land away from the people. They're a danger to this country, and they must stop them in 2024. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Christians. I now recognise the Honourable Brinkhuis on the hybrid system.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, the Western Cape Province is reported to have the most lucrative agricultural economy in South Africa, but yet the province has failed land transformation to promising black farmers. Black people in the Western Cape own only 1% of agricultural land in the province, and the rest of the sector remains in the hands of white people. In 2018, when the Honourable Premier was MEC for Economic Opportunities, he admitted to the Western Cape's slow pace of land reform. 5 years later, nothing has changed. The province must put a stop to illegal farm evictions and put methods in place to give farm dwellers a genuine option to own agricultural land so they can continue to live and farm on land they have been living on for decades. The few black farmers are not getting enough support from the agribusiness, and many are doomed for failure. There must be strong support from the commodity approach system to ensure black farmers continue to farm successfully and not forced to rent out their farms to establish white farmers. Black people face tremendous red tape and other challenges to get their land back. They are disadvantaged by the existing situation and land reform. And the province is further entrenching a system to keep black people and black farmers landless. The need for agricultural land is rising among black people. Al Jamaa calls on opposition parties who want to see justice for black farmers to speak with one voice and to
Honorable
defeat
Brandes,
this
time has expired. Please conclude.
and to defeat the system. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And to defeat the system which deliberately withholds
Thank you
agricultural
very
land
much,
from
Honorable
black people.
Brandes. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Speaker.
I now recognize the Honorable Bosman.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Speaker, I think this topic is one of the most interesting ones that have been discussed in this House in recent weeks. The issue is a complex one, and one which is informed by multiple political, economic, and historic factors. But what I've heard thus far from the opposition has not been very inspiring. My honourable friends in the singular and the EFF seems to think that land redistribution will be some sort of silver bullet that will solve the problems of this country and of this province. Speaker, I hate to be the one to spoil this fantasy. It will not. Rather, the EFF's plans for land redistribution will lead to further chaos, further lawlessness, further instability at a time when our country can ill afford any further missteps. As I speak to you now, our currency is in free fall, driven in large part by the ANC's insistence on supporting an illegal and unjust war in Ukraine, even though some of their members have argued that when the rand falls, you can pick them up. What the ANC has done, they've converted South Africa into a pariah state. Food prices, by contrast, continue to rise, as does the interest rates, and the number of investors, businesses, and recent graduates are fleeing our shores. Speaker, we as a country are on a collision course with disaster, led by a national government. What our country needs is not more chaos, not more high-minded political ideology spewed as demagogues. But to be clear, Speaker, we in the DA recognize the injustices of the past. We do support land reform, but not in the chaotic, corruption-susceptible, and economically catastrophic and unjust way proposed by those members opposite in red, in green, black, and gold. If land reform is to be achieved without destroying our economy and creating economic hardships for millions more people, it will take a sober, effective leadership that the DA has a proven track record of. On Tuesday, Minister Becky Cele released South Africa's latest crime statistics. By this point, we know what to expect from these figures, and yet they still somehow manage to prove shocking every single time. Almost 6,300 people murdered in the last 90 days. An instance of contact crime every 50 seconds, 146 sexual assaults per day. Frankly, Speaker, I do not understand how Minister Cele can still face the people of this country, given this utter failure to stop our country being engulfed by a tidal wave of crime, especially crime in our rural areas. In fact, Speaker, the only place where this continuous tide of violence shows any sign of abating is here in the Western Cape. We have seen a 14.1% reduction in murder and a 9.9% reduction in rapes. Our LEAP officers have shown their worth like never before, with Nyanga and Mfuleni both dropping down the ranks of the most violent police precincts in this country. And in the rural areas where our farmers and farm workers live, we have seen that we are the only province in this country where the emerging black farmers that the EFF and the ANC claim to fight for make their living. We remain the only province to maintain our own dedicated, boots-on-the-ground rural safety units. They work to ensure that those who live in these communities are kept safe and that they are not left behind. Speaker, I feel that I do not need to remind this House I feel that I do not need to remind this House that the protection of our rural communities and our agricultural sector is not only about justice, but security. Without adequate protection for our farmers and the logistical chains which keep us fed, our current problems with food inflation and the unavailability will look minor in comparison. This government understands that protecting our residents is not only something that should be done to make our communities safer, but something that has a greater effect on our society as a whole. Speaker, I rose on the issue of crime to illustrate my point. The ANC and the EFF says that they want to help people, but they have absolutely no idea how to do so. The EFF parades about on social media, performing facile publicity stunts and spewing baseless rhetoric with zero plan to actually help people. And the ANC seems intent on turning us into a mafia state, devoid of jobs, devoid of safety, and devoid of hope. Both parties spend so much time speaking of what ought to be instead of what actually is. They are incapable of confronting reality. They fail to understand that good, effective governance is needed to right the ship, and that this needs to happen now. To fix this country, to restore hope, we need concrete, solid steps that needs to be taken urgently, and that is what the DA has to offer. By contrast, the ANC and the EFF's plans to improve South Africa can be summed up in one word. And out of deference to you, Speaker, I will not say that word in this chamber, but it was used by Minister Thandi Modise in the National Assembly last week to describe what she claims was loaded onto a Russian cargo ship. I will give us all a hint. The word consists of 2 syllables, the latter which rhymes with haul. By contrast to all of us, Speaker, this DA-led Western Cape government soldiers forward, quietly bringing real solutions to our residents. That is the reason why our province is on track to halve the murder rate by 2029, and why we are the only province that is eliminating load shedding for good. That is why we are the only province creating thousands of new jobs. And in 2024, that is why the people of this province and of this nation and this province can look forward to a brighter future. And through you, Honourable Speaker, I want to remind Honourable Barnes that she is in the best run province. She asked, where is she? She's in the best run province, the Western Cape. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Bosman. I now recognize the Honourable Marais on the virtual platform.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the issue of and process of land restitution was debated, argued and finally agreed to at Kodesa and Turnhulle between credible ANC leaders like Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu, Joe Slovo, and the Freedom Front Plus leader at the time, General Constant Viljoen. This agreement, Article 25, was mediated by the United States. For discredited ANC and EFF leaders to now demand amendments is treason. It's spitting on the graves of their former leaders like Nelson Mandela and Sisulu. The Freedom Front Plus will not and cannot support any amendments to Article 25 or any attempt at land grabs. South Africa was formed in 1910, not in 2023. It was formed by the United Kingdom, whose colonies, Natal, Transvaal, Cape Colony, and Orange Free State were merged into a union of South Africa in 1910. The ANC wasn't even formed then. There wasn't even sight of an EFF. They know nothing about these talks. And at the time, they gave the Griquas Griqualand East and Griqualand West. Griqualand West used to be called no man's land, didn't belong to anybody. And that's why it's still called Griqualand West. We have legitimate claims. Yes, the Griquas have legitimate claims. And also the Trankra Act, which was formerly the Missionary Act of 1910, has given 23 rural areas to colored communities. First to the missionaries, and now in 1998, the ANC government wrote the Trankra Act that those colonies and those areas must be transferred to colored people.
Honourable Marais, your time has expired. Please conclude.
I therefore want to say, let us stick to agreements. Let us not give in to land grabbers. They have nothing to offer this country
Thank you,
but to
Honourable
lead
Murray.
it to destruction.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Honourable Moran.
Thanks, Speaker. Good afternoon, Premier, members present. I'm not going to respond to all the previous speakers, but I just want to tell some of the members, the Honourable Gillian, that our currency is in free fall because of your leader that listened to gossip, rushed to the USA and tell them stories. One would have thought after the US ambassador have clarified the issue and have apologized to the South African people, one would have thought that your leader will rush again and tell them, look, but I've lied to you. MEC, you told us about title deeds. Tell us about Amalienstein and Vaikra, 2 farms that's under your management. 10 years ago, you promised the people of Duiselsdorp in Zoa that you will hand over and give title deeds to them. 10 years later, it's not the case. You can't even manage 2 farms.
Honourable Moran, please.
Through you, Speaker. Through you, Speaker.
Honourable Moran, please take your seat. Honourable Minister, is that an indication of a point of order?
It's a point of order. I hear that the honourable member is asking me a question. Can I answer it?
Please take your seat. Honourable Moran, have you posed the question to the Honourable MEC?
No. So, Speaker, through you, the MEC can't even manage 2 farms. And he tell us about the ANC, 2 farms, that you have failed the people, the MEC have failed the people of Zoa and the people of Amalienstein for the last 10 to 13 years. The Speaker, the Honourable Maslodi, she could have chosen Helen Zille or Tony Leon, but she chose to quote the ANC Thabo Mbeki. It clearly tells you there's no people in the DA that she can quote.
Honourable Moran, please take your seat because I apologise and I just think it's my duty to protect you on the floor. Can I please ask that the members on my left and right please allow Honourable Moran to make his contribution to this debate. I think it's highly disrespectful while the member's on the floor when you're drowning out the member. Interjections are allowed, but please note that the minute you drown out the speaker, it affects and it infringes on their rights. Honourable Moran, you may continue.
Thanks, Speaker. We are not in a process to change Section 25 of the Constitution. We don't have to. Because the 1975 expropriation bill gave us the opportunity to amend that particular bill to make sure that expropriation in the interest of the public gets a reality. We are busy with that particular process, so don't be confused with the 1975 expropriation bill and the property clause as it is in the Constitution. We are dealing with the expropriation bill. And Speaker, we only need six provinces to push that particular bill through. The ANC is in charge of 8. If we're going to push it through, it's going to become a reality. That's a given. Honourable Speaker, the ANC welcomes the debate on the South African land question, a thorny and very emotive subject as millions of our land-hungry people still live on the outskirts of cities and towns, as far away as possible from places of economic opportunities. Our people remain landless due to centuries-long land dispossession and economic exclusion. The month of June is a stark reminder of that painful past as it marks the 110th anniversary of the 1913 Native Land Act, which legislated the centuries-long dispossession of land, which started with the arrival of the Dutch East India Company in Cape Town in 1652. About the Native Land Act, Saul Plaatje, the founding member of the ANC and the first General Secretary, remarked, and I quote, "Awakening on Friday morning, June 20, 1913, South African native found himself not actually a slave, but a pariah in the land of his country of birth. For this legislation, black people were prohibited from owning 93% of land, while demarcating the remaining 7% of natives' reserves. Bessie Head is indeed correct when she said, and I quote, "It is possible that no other black legislation has so deeply affected the lives of black people in South Africa as the Natives Land Act of 1913. It created overnight floating land lists, proletatate whose labor could be used and manipulated at will, and ensured that the land had finally and secured passed into the hands of the ruling white race. For this legislation, large pockets of land were reserved exclusively for ownership and use by white people, thereby dividing our country into prosperous whites, only areas on the one side, and increasingly impoverished concentration camps for black people on the outskirts of cities on the other side. The Group Areas Act of 1950 is another piece of legislation that had a similar impact. 110 years later, South Africa is still struggling to redress this historical injustice. In 1994, it was estimated that 83% of agricultural land was owned by white people, by white capital. This has not changed much since. In 2018, African Farmers Association, in short AFASA, claimed that black people own only 1% of agricultural land in the Western Cape, and that the entire value chain of the sector is white-owned. Stats SA's 21 Agricultural Survey showed that the province with the largest income from sales of goods and services in the agriculture and related services industry in 2021 was the Western Cape, with 74.9 billion, or 19.5% of the industry total. It is without a doubt that the 74.9 billion is in the hands of whites. And this is what the DA is defending when it says the people must vote against the expropriation bill. Honourable Speaker, to accelerate the land reform process, the ANC resolved at its 54th conference to allow for expropriation of land without compensation to take place. This is a necessary step to right the wrongs of the past. The expropriation bill public hearings have started in the Western Cape. The ANC calls on all residents of our province to attend the hearings in numbers and support the bill. This is the same thing that they are doing on the Bella bill. The DA is anti-transformation and has no interest in redressing the historical injustice. The enemies of progress and apartheid beneficiaries led by the DA are encouraging the people to vote against the bill. This is not in the best interest of the people, but to protect the privileges of the few. The same privileges can be seen in the H2A program, the US initiative to allow employers or agents to bring foreign nationals to the United States to fill temporarily agricultural jobs. Over 95% of all employees from the Western Cape are white, something that has been raised as a concern by the US consulate to both the MEC and us as a committee who went over to California not so long ago. The above proves that the DA is the party for whites' only interest, and this is why it must be voted out of power next year. Honourable Speaker, despite slow progress in land reform, the ANC has done a good job to acquire land and redistribute it. For instance, in April 2021, the national government handed over 764,000 hectares of land to the Kowi community nearby Plettenberg in the Western Cape, after a successful land settlement claim. As part of efforts to accelerate land reform, the land is expected to positively impact 411 households' ability to gain financial freedom. Moreover, the Interministerial Committee on Land took a resolution in 2019 that all state-owned land identified as suitable to be released for human settlement development through issuing power of attorney to the Housing Development Agency to enable the agency to undertake development preparation, planning and coordinated development, implementing in collaboration with other spheres and sectors of government. As a result of this, the National Department of Public Works and Infrastructure released over 35 hectares of land in the province. This includes pockets of land in Drakensberg, Mossel Bay, Stellenbosch, and the city of Cape Town. In June 2016, a deed of sale was signed by the CEOs of HDA and Sunrail for the 55.124 hectares of land owned by Sunrail for the Knysna Corridor Development Project. Only 30 hectares were transferred to HDA. The balance was transferred to Knysna Municipality for human settlements. There are also
Honourable Maran, please conclude. Your time has expired.
There are also parcels of land at Wingsfield Military Land and Tamboerskloof site that may be released for human settlement.
Thank you very much, Honourable Maran. Please take your seat. Thank you, Honourable Maran. Honourable members, before we conclude, there's one more speaker before we conclude the debate. Just want to remind members that when I indicate that your time has expired, your time has actually expired. There's part of parliamentary rules where a certain time is allocated per political party and allocated to a member. Can I please ask that you do not defy the chair, and I'm speaking to both sides of the House, and when you are called to order, to conclude. I was a bit lenient today because we had some time, and I allowed you to finish your sentences, but it doesn't mean that you can go on and on and on. And that's a general statement for both sides of the House. Now, I've seen the Honourable Minister on my right and Honourable Moran on my left, so I will acknowledge you in that fashion.
Honourable Speaker, I want to rise on a point of order.
Yes,
One
sir.
of the values of this government is caring. The member that is sponsoring the debate, we just want to find out from the Honourable Member if he's fine, whether we need any medical support from Honourable Member.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, that is not a point of order, so I'm not going to entertain that. On my left-hand side, Honourable Moran.
Speaker, I just want to check with you as the presiding officer of this House, because through the speeches, and even when the embassy has spoken, you have said his time is up, but allowed him to conclude. And I haven't heard you have basically speak from the top towards the embassy and what you have done to me now. I thought, Speaker, you have said my time is up, but conclude, of which I have done. And now I'm getting a warning from you.
Honourable Moran, firstly, I didn't address you. I addressed the principle of when your time is up, your time is up. And without justifying my rulings, because this is not the platform to do so, I, in fact, to that particular minister that you are referring to, I, in fact, did do exactly that. And you can check the Hansard, and you can check the transcripts. So I will not entertain that any further, and I will now recognize the Honourable Simmers. You may continue, Honourable Simmers. I heard that, Honourable Moran. You may continue.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and to the Premier, my Cabinet colleagues, all members of the House and those online, but also our citizens following today's session that's logged in. Firstly, thank you for Member Klaas in absentia for sponsoring. I think it's quite a prudent subject matter for discussion. But Speaker, a few days ago when we experienced the heavy rains across vast areas in our province, I hope that the member who sponsored today's debate actually visited some of these low-lying areas where land was actually invaded thanks to his party's and that of the ANC's mantra, with the notion of unoccupied land must be invaded or expropriated. And here I remember this House of the Honourable Dagmo's infamous SMS of 2018, which led to numerous land invasions in Overstrand. And that is facts, not gossip, like the Honourable Member loves to peddle in this House. Those desperate residents who have been misled by the EFF and the ANC party's chance, Honourable Speaker, now every winter since then, wake up to the informal structures flooded and their goods damaged. And I think they would ultimately tell these two parties and their leaderships, even within this province, that they have now vehemently manipulated these citizens, forcing them into a desperate situation, leading them to believe that what they were doing were right, invading land with the hope of jumping the queue to actually get a housing opportunity. So dank u vir jou SMS, achtbare Derio, Speaker. Die achtbare Dagmo se SMS is baie effectief, of was baie effectief vir verkeerde redes. But these calls have not only cost the state millions of rands, Honourable Speaker, over the years, but it has also endangered now the lives of these citizens living in these low-lying flood-prone areas. But what has been the cost of the infamous SMS, among other things, and the incitement by other ANC structures in this province in the EFF? And this is how costly the picture of land invasion looks like as we speak, Honourable Speaker. In the year prior to COVID-19, the Department of Human Settlements spent 28.5 million rand to protect land that was earmarked for human settlements development. However, following the incitement by the EFF and the ANC in this province and at the national level, encouraging residents to occupy land that was unoccupied, the very next year, our expense in terms of the protection of land across this province ballooned to 340 million rand for the 2020-2021 financial year. But it did not stop there. During the financial year of 21-22, my department spent a further 162 million rand across this province to protect land earmarked for settlement development. 142.8 million rand of that spend was within the metro, which saw the biggest surge in terms of orchestrated land invasions across certain areas across the city of Cape Town. Honourable Speaker, effectively, all the amounts that I've just mentioned has seen, and I exclude the bulk infrastructure cost that could have unlocked a lot of housing opportunities for our province, close to 1,000 housing opportunities for fully state subsidized housing assistance has been lost forever because of these actions by these two parties. Approximately 600 people's lives, which we could have changed for the better, who are qualifying beneficiaries, will no longer be in a position to have the quality of their life bettered. They will now need to wait even longer. Scale. This is the cost when you peddle lies and you peddle rooms for adequate housing opportunities. Honourable Speaker, in the last 3 years, we have seen 1,600 successful land invasions. You can't speak of zero-sum compensation. That does not work. The security of tenure, the right to people to own the land, to do with the land as they wish, is enshrined in our constitution. But once again, we can see on a national level, just like we can see in this legislature, just like we can see in this province, the ANC is a zombie party. All of the ideas are zombie-orientated with a zombie opposition leader in this house who has no backbone. He can only peddle lies and peddle rumors and incite people through SMSs. That is what the ANC means in this province. That is what they try to accomplish through this ridiculous introduction of bills and the comments. Honourable Speaker,
Order, members. Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable Side, is that a point of order? Is that a point of order? Please.
Chair, on a point of order, Chair, is it parliamentary for the Honourable MEC to refer to the Honourable Dagmo as a zombie? That's not the kind of language that we are supposed to use in this house.
Honourable members, Honourable Minister, did you refer to any member in this house, Honourable member, as a zombie?
Honourable Speaker, I said the ANC in this house is a zombie. Thank you.
Order, members. Honourable Chief Whip. Honourable Chief, my apologies, Chief Whip. Honourable Deputy Chief Whip, because your hand was up first, I'll recognise you and then the Chief Whip.
Speaker, I quite clearly heard the Honourable Simmers say that the leader of the opposition is a zombie. So if you want to consult the Hansard, I think you could do so. But it's quite clear for all of us, he must withdraw that remark. Thank you.
All right. Honourable members, as per the rules and procedures, I've posed that on your point of order, I asked the Minister, did he refer to any honourable member in this house as a zombie? And he said, no, he did not. He referred to a political party. What I will do is I will consult Hansard and I will revert back to the House. Honourable Chief Whip.
Thank you. I'm covered with your latter response because I was going to request that you listen to the Hansard because I clearly heard him saying, with a zombie-like leader of the opposition, those were his direct words.
All right, I will do so, and I will revert back to the House. Honourable Minister, you may continue. Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable Chief Whip, Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The Honourable Bosman from across the floor is now asking, where are the other zombies? I think this is inappropriate. Let's move away from this. Let's get to the business of the House.
Honourable members,
Speaker,
can I
I
just
don't know if you
remind
see my
members that
hand,
we are
Speaker.
all honourable members in this House, and can we please respect one another as honourable members? Honourable, my apologies, Honourable Marais, is that a point of order?
Yes, Speaker. Speaker, when you do give your ruling finally, I just want you to compare the word zombie to the word racist and say whether racist is acceptable. Even a poster held up saying racist is acceptable but not zombie. And tell us what is the difference, please.
Honourable Marais, that is not a point of order. If you have an objection to any of my rulings or previous rulings, please follow the parliamentary procedure to do so. Honourable Minister, you may continue.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, much of the opposition comments are focused on what is perceived to be the DA's reluctance in terms of addressing the issue of land, and also enabling the use of our own state-owned land in the interest of our people. So let me just put the record straight, seeing that the Department of Infrastructure is the custodian of all of our province's land. And I'll mention a few examples, which I think is quite pertinent, which the members of this House, irrespective of party, must be made aware of, because these are facts, not fiction. Earlier today, we saw the announcement by Minister Provincial that the Netcare Serious Hospital building has now been officially transferred through to the Provincial Department of Health. This means that this building will now be repurposed to serve the greater Serious community and those surrounding communities that also benefit from this hospital. This is but one example where, through a caring government such as the DA-led Western Cape, we are ensuring that thousands of people will now benefit from the Serious Hospital with access to quality healthcare in their reach. So this is a government that truly prioritizes the well-being of its citizens, because too many buildings and land parcels, unfortunately, which were earmarked by this department through its other sister departments, have either been invaded or organizations have been encouraged by people within the ANC and the EFF to actually invade these portions of land or buildings which were earmarked to improve our people's lives. Honourable Speaker, on the one hand, we have an ANC that has been sleeping at the wheel for nearly 30 years. That is a fact. You can see that our country is on autopilot for many, many years. But we've also had to watch horribly in great horror the dismal failure of the ANC's version of land reform through their various examples, which they boastfully did so post here again today in the House. However, the same party is very quick, Honourable Speaker, and opportunistic to jump on a bandwagon, to start peddling certain matters to the citizens of our province without having all the facts. But what else could we expect from a party that is on autopilot, led by a zombie at the national level? What else could we expect, Honourable Speaker? Honourable Speaker, further examples of where we are empowering small-scale farmers, once again utilizing our land in various non-metro areas. Sandkraal Farm, which is in George, a land which has now been effectively earmarked and transferred to the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development for those small-scale farmers in Sandkraal Farm in George. But we added a provision as part of our transfer request that a functional CPA be established, that the DALRRD must be at liberty then only to transfer that property to the CPA, because we want to ensure that this be a success story, not a wishful story which trumps up and comes up as an erroneous mistake like we have seen in other examples in other provinces where land has been transferred to small-scale farmers. But we can go one step further. It's a pity the Honourable Meran isn't here. He mentioned Amalienstein in Zoar. He mentioned Duiselsdorp. And I'm sorry to tell the member, he's once again been misinformed. But what could one expect when you depend on information from dysfunctional ANC structures instead of just looking up the correct facts on a matter? In terms of Amalienstein, which is in Zoar, it's a small farm, 5.6 hectares is in the process of being transferred to that community for community use. That is fact. Secondly, in terms of the
No,
Vigra
but that is being done by national
Honourable
government,
Maran was referring,
not by the provincial
that is in
government.
Duitsland, Oudtshoorn. Once again, Honourable Speaker, we're in the process of finalising the transfer to that community so that they can benefit from these two farms. And these are but some of the examples I can make. This dear provincial government over the last few years have transferred close to 18 hectares.
Honourable Minister, your time has expired. Please conclude.
Honourable Speaker, this is a government, in contrast national, we do not sleep. We do not talk land reform. We exercise land reform, functional, but in the interest of our in the people of our province.
Thank you very much.
And that is what message we
Proceed. That concludes the debate on this subject. We will now move on to interpellations as related for in Rule 197. I now recognize the Honourable Allen. Minister Allen.
Baie dankie, Speaker. Thank you, Speaker. I wish to say thank you to Member Christians for this particular interpellation. And I want to reply as follows, is that the walking bus project was established by the departmental government in Drakenstein. The Pink Ladies, for example, does similar programs in terms of patrolling and of walking our young people to and from school. And that's a consistent effort that we are making via our bilateral discussions with municipalities, but also with the South African Police Service. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I now recognise the Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Minister, for your reply. Minister, we know how the walking bus concept works. It is people that walk the learners to school, and they were paid a stipend. And as you correctly say, it was introduced by then Minister Plato in 2016, and when he became mayor, it was transferred to the city. If I visited a couple of schools, and Minister Wenger is here, we visited the walking bus out in Delta. We can see what the safety. It worked. What I want to ask you, did you make an audit of how many walking buses similar do we have now and what we had previously? Because there's a decrease in the of our learners being at schools in the townships, and you ask the principal, why is learners absent from school? And they will tell you it is because of turf wars. Now we know in these walking buses, the parents, community workers that walk the children to school and back home, they are seen in the community and our children are safe. So, Minister, being your department, it started with your department, it's now being transport. But the question is, too many of our learners is not safe traveling to school, and they must walk. And when there's a fight, they stay at home. It's unacceptable. They lose work, they fail. We get school dropouts because of this. It's a major problem. And that's why I'm asking if you can maybe look at it and see, how your department can assist maybe municipalities or whatever it is to have walking buses fully operational. I don't have the numbers, but the numbers has decreased significantly. And if we do not ensure that our learners get safe to school and from home, they're going to drop out, and we're going to sit with a dropout rate. And that is our biggest problem. We're trying to retain our learners in school, but then we must also help and assist with their safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Christians. Honourable Bosman.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and many thanks to the Minister for his response. And while I too would have liked to hear more on how this initiative is implemented in other municipalities, I understand it no longer falls under the purview of his department, and I will directly engage colleagues in the city of Cape Town as well. However, Speaker, I cannot feel there's a continuous and recurring trend in which provincial entities such as the Minister's Department are forced to use their limited resources in order to compensate for the failures of our national government. In addition to initiatives like this, we know the Western Cape Education Department now also employs school resource officers to keep our children safe. So I cannot help but feel that none of this would be necessary if we have a national government that simply fulfilled its mandate to provide safety from the start, because we know safety is the competency of SAPS. With this in mind, Deputy Speaker, I'd like to, through you, ask the Minister if he knows of any resources that SAPS has devoted to guaranteeing the safety of our learners as they make their way to and from schools. And if you can please share with us what form any resources from SAPS has taken, and what has the results have been from intervention from the South African Police Service, whose mandate this is.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Now we move over.
Due to the crisis of gangs in the province, to school, and in the process placing their lives in danger. This is why a group of parents, many of them who were mothers, decided to start the Walking Bus initiative. Member Plato, when he was the MEC, understood the importance of the initiative and adopted the project as his own. This is something he repeated when he was the mayor of Cape Town, providing the parents with stipends and other necessary support. The ANC welcomed this in principle because we understood the importance of communities playing a role in community safety. We always maintained that the scope of walking buses should be expanded to allow them to be placed in schools as well. When Member Plato was demoted to a backbencher, the project was also stopped. This is the same thing the DA did with the Blue Dot and the Red Dot programs when they dealt with Matikizela. Gideon Hill-Lewis came in, said that the walking bus initiative was not sustainable and its budget ballooned over the years. Funds were diverted to a professionalized community safety unit. In this new initiative by the mayor, volunteers are complaining, saying that they are not getting paid for over 2 months. We demand an end to this exploitation of people. MEC Ellen, through the safety plan, must make provision to support communities to play an active role to the fight of crime. The MEC must tell us why this can't be possible. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Barnes. I now recognise Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I know the function of SAPS, and I know the Honourable Member is right. SAPS is failing us. We cannot depend on SAPS. So I cannot think the safety of our learners is more important. SAPS is failing us in many, many areas, but we need to prioritize the safety of our learners. And that's why I'm asking the Minister to please look at that and looking at the way forward. If you can come back or just give me a written reply to say this is where we are at the moment. And, you know, but no, I've been in Novel Park, I've been in Manenberg. That is the cries of the people that our people are not safe. Because, you know, it's terrible in the townships. You know, the one gang belongs to the one turf and the other gang to the other turf. And when there's fights, our learners suffer. They get shot, you know, they get murdered. And it cannot continue. So I know you've got a small budget, but maybe your department can play a leading role with municipalities to ensure that something similar like the walking bus continue. I know it's not your responsibility, it's SAP's responsibility, but I'm asking you because that is the cries for help from the community. What can the Western Cape government do to ensure the safety of our learners going to school and going back? And we know we've got a lot of success stories of the walking bus, and that's why that is my reference point. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Christians. I recognise Minister Allen.
Member Christians, thank you so much. I will definitely, via my office, write to each and every municipality to request an update from those municipalities with regards to their particular safety initiatives. I can confirm over the last year, we have had summits in each and every district, which comprised of each and every municipality. And I will definitely, within 24 hours, write to each and every mayor to get an update on their particular safety initiatives in the various municipalities. Like I've said, Member Bosman, through you, Deputy Speaker, in that just yesterday, when I saw the Pink Ladies doing similar initiatives like the walking bus within the Chicago area of Paul. And we are always, Deputy Speaker, encouraging our municipalities to also step up further. Member Bosman, Deputy Speaker, touched on the school resource officers. I think it's very vital to also mention that the reply from a parliamentary question on the 9th of May 2023 from Member Bartman to the Minister of Education in the Western Cape gives information with regards to our school resource officers that also play a vital role in terms of the commute, the routes, but also safeguarding our students to and from school. I think it is vital, Deputy Speaker, to also note that in our engagements with the South African Police Service, we have seen, and I think each and every member of this particular House will be fully aware of February and of March, when there was extra visibility, extra deployment in the area of Umfuleni and of Khayelitsha, we actually saw dramatic decreases in crime in those particular areas. It did come, however, at a huge cost, when the taxi blockade in those particular areas covering Umfuleni, Khayelitsha, parts of Tafelsig as well. So we've seen the extra visibility do go a long way. And through you, Deputy Speaker, to Member Bosman, I will commit to again highlight this to the Provincial Commissioner, highlight this to our district commissioners, because we need visible policing at strategic times, because we know the routes that our learners are walking. And as such, we have always advocated for that data-led approach. When we know it's school after school, we are even engaging our MEC for transport around when traffic officers are in certain areas, when they conduct their business, even when they go to work, if they go via certain routes, because that extra visibility does go a long way. Member Barnes, thank you so much for your contribution. When you spoke, I was reminded, and maybe Member Syed will also remember this time. We were probably 5, 6 at the height of the station strangler tormenting our communities. And there was forms of walking buses when I walked to Caradale, when people walk to various schools. So this is an initiative in its simplicity that as a government we identify with, that we see can work. Hence, we are always looking at ways to foster the relationships with our municipalities to also step up. The Premier did hear your remark with regards to the budget, and I will leave it at that, because we are always looking at how we are advocating for extra budget so that we can make allocations to various initiatives. But Member Barnes, you asked a very direct question. Why this can't be possible? Why can't this be possible? I would appeal again to members of the opposition, the official opposition, that once we get to our equitable share debate, and when those discussions happen, I would sincerely trust that the opposition will support us, because we have often seen we are not getting our fair share, and if our fair share should be landing, we will definitely then have more money in order to have safety initiatives across our province. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Honourable Minister. That concludes that interpellation. We now move over to interpellation 3. I recognise the Honourable Minister Wenger.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Western Cape Government acknowledges the immense importance and potential of the township economy in the Western Cape and South Africa. This point is demonstrated very clearly in the 2022 Provincial Economic Review and Outlook, which showed that approximately 30% of employment in South Africa came from the informal economy and 19% of employment in the Western Cape, which amounted to 439,000 jobs in the Western Cape in the first quarter of 2022. The Department of Economic Development and Tourism has now finalized the Growth for Jobs strategy, which is explicit in its approach that the informal and township economies are part of this all-of-government strategy, and the document takes cognizance of the rural and urban dimensions in its approach with a clear spatial lens. More specifically, the strategy makes clear that inclusion requires growth that is jobs-rich, and a spatial dimension to grow the economy in the formal, informal, and township sectors. At its core is the understanding that government needs to play a role in getting the fundamentals of growth right, such as energy, water, and infrastructure. And this must include enabling the success of informal businesses as well as formal businesses in the private sector. Furthermore, initiatives such as assisting businesses to register and giving them exposure to funding opportunities are important for economic growth and job creation. As such, the provincial government actively partners and collaborates with the private sector, civil society, and other levels of government to assist, as well as through our own projects and collaborations. While the Department of Economic Development and Tourism does not provide direct funding, we do fund and support organizations that assist SMMEs, including township businesses, through the SMME Booster Fund. Some of the organizations that we work with and fund include R-Labs and the Bicycle Empowerment Network, as well as the Association for Savings and Investment South Africa. The SMMEs supported are in areas including Belhar, Bishop Lavis, Khayelitsha, Langa, Malmesbury, Ocean View, Masipumelele, Mitchell's Plain, Montague, Beaufort West, and Guguletu. The support provided to these businesses through our partnerships and funding enables them to be sustainable, to expand, and to employ more people. In addition to the SMME Booster Fund and through the Business Development Support Program, the department provided township businesses in Drakenstein with non-financial support, including equipment, machinery, and marketing collateral to enable SMMEs to continue to operate and hopefully grow. Further to the support I've already spoken to, the department also works with development finance institutions and agencies like the Small Enterprise Finance Agency, SEFA, to link SMMEs and specifically township businesses with access to funding. As I have informed the House recently, I'm advised that since 2019, the SMME Booster Fund included a category to support municipal infrastructure development, which resulted in the establishment or support of informal and township trading places. In Hesekwa, 4 business units and a hub to support light industrial types of businesses. In Bongoletu, 5 traders and containerized units. In Langeberg, a trading site serving 22 existing and new informal traders. In Mossel Bay, 17 refurbished containers which house 23 local businesses. In Swellendam, SMME trading zone supporting 6 businesses. In Leyensburg, 4 units to accommodate businesses in the retail sector. In Cape Agulhas, 6 trading containers. In Witzenberg, industrial and business space through 10 customized containers. And in Mossel Bay, 19 trading units and a further hub for 15 local businesses and 3 day trainers. The programs I've mentioned speak to some of the work the department is doing to help small township businesses to grow and to help unlock the full potential of the township economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. I now recognise the Honourable Kasim.
Thank you, Speaker. Western Cape remains one of the most unequal and untransformed provinces in South Africa. This is made worse by the fact that this dear-led Western Cape provincial government has a narrow view on economic investment and on who should be the drivers of job creation. Total dependence on the private sector, especially foreign direct investment, for purpose of job creation does not always yield the expected positive results. Modern economies require an interventionist state which will guide where resources should be allocated. In the Western Cape, people cannot always be told to go and seek employment opportunities, even in situations where the same people can be empowered to be employers themselves. What's required is a willing government which is prepared to invest in small township businesses, as well as turning informal settlements into formal ones. Since the Pick and Pay Spaza Shop program, which ran between 2017 and 2021, failed, this government has not come up with a substantive mechanism that will intervene in assisting and transforming the township economy. The downfall of this Spaza Shop program was as a result of the DA's stance that the private sector must create employment and government must watch from the distance. Because had the provincial government played an interventionist role in the collaboration with Pick and Pay, then they could have realized earlier on that certain Spaza Shop owners are struggling and indeed in need of assistance. In that way, the government can intervene early to make sure that Spaza Shop owners receive all the help they need and the businesses remain in operation until such a time that they can be able to totally stand and operate on their own without needing any assistance. In conclusion, today, as a result of these failures by the provincial government, some of the Pick and Pay Spaza Shop owners remain out of business after incurring debt and are forced to go out there to queue for employment opportunities where they could have been employees themselves. With this being said, my question, how will the department make sure that future investments in small businesses in this province remain sustainable?
Thank you very much, Honourable Kasim. I now recognise the Honourable America.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you for your opening remarks, Minister. It is clear that you and your department realize the value that stands to be unlocked in our informal economy. A consistent challenge for these businesses has been access to funding to expand and increase their revenue, which of course will lead to increased job creation. The work done by your department to integrate informal businesses into the formal economy where they will have access to registered financial institutions and desperately needed funding, will have increased economic activity. The SME Booster Fund is especially an impressive initiative that helps entrepreneurs to get their businesses up and running and to take it to the next level. It is, after all, our entrepreneurs who we need to give every chance to build up their businesses and to create jobs. Minister, could you please elaborate to our residents how they can benefit from the SME Boost Fund and how they could possibly apply for it? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable America. I recognise Honourable Vimby.
Honourable Deputy Speaker. Through you, Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Honourable Kasim and I should agree that the MEC's department does not have the political will to eradicate inequality in our society. And so therefore, she does not see how assisting small township businesses can help eradicate inequality, unemployment, and poverty within our community. I know that in September last year, the Honorable Ngonjo, whom I am standing in for today, sponsored the debate on this very discussion. The response from the MEC was underwhelming. Appointing the national government as usual. The Honorable Ngonjo then interpellation in March this year. This time maybe coming from another angle of looking at former municipal traders, especially in exposing them to funding opportunities. Again, the Honorable Kasim can guess, the MEC again blamed the national government, speaking about corruption, telling us about things we know as she does today, instead of answering to the interpellation. The MEC has now been in office for a full year. She has had no impact whatsoever on the provincial economy. She has introduced ideas. She has taken up no suggestion given to her by our opposition benches, and she is stone deaf to the needs and desires of the township economy. The MEC has been as stone deaf as her predecessors, where it is for these reasons that they think they should use small township businesses to become outlets of white monopoly capital, like is a white monopoly capital. So the MEC was suggesting rather than what they have achieved.
Your time is up. Thank you very much. Honourable Kasim.
Speaker, the department must also realise that township economy is very diverse. Some businesses remain small and informal, some remain illegal, but can't be assisted to comply with the law, be legal and registered. For example, since some of the black and coloured people in townships do not qualify for formal loans as a result of not earning enough salaries, most of them end up taking loans from loan sharks who are operating illegally. However, what is important here is that those loan sharks have already shown the willingness to be in business. However, the difficulty might be the issue of compliance with the requirement of the National Credit Regulator, as well as getting additional funding for purposes. The government can create a program in which they call out all those who are interested to be in the business sector, and then assist them with the registration process or guidelines up until those individuals receive the NCRs and operate. From that point, government can also assist these registered businesses by introducing them to the stakeholders who will assist them on how to run those businesses formally. It all starts with registering a company, applying for the NCR license, and then operate the business. In conclusion, if this provincial government would do that with diverse businesses in the township economy, then that will ensure that unemployment is eradicated. We cannot always only look at established businesses when we want to eradicate the issue of high unemployment. The aim should also both employers. With this being said, can this department show us where assisted various diversified illegal or informal businesses to enter the formal business sector and succeed? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Kassim. I now recognise the Honourable Minister Wenger.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. It's interesting that the Honourable Member from the EFF chooses to focus on the programme. It would be interesting to know what about the rest that I lay out in chapter and verse repeatedly in this House. And quite frankly, it's a very tired and quite frankly lazy narrative to say that the Western Cape is the most unequal province in the country when it is not. In respect of the Honourable Member from the ANC, he obviously had a prepared speech that he couldn't bring himself to deviate from, because if he had actually listened, I didn't mention the national government once. And of course, it is in keeping with ANC character that they would rather attack the player than the ball, as the ANC often chooses to do, because they cannot argue on the facts. So in closing, and to build and continue on the impactful programs and initiatives, as mentioned in my opening and in my budget speech in March of this year, we've tabled a 1.5 billion rand budget for Vote 12 for the 2023 MTF, which includes a 55.5 million rand allocation over the MTF for alternative energy support for SMMEs. This support is to help businesses in township and informal economies so that they can continue to trade. I also announced that the SMME Booster Fund will be continuing in the 23-24 financial year with 8.18 million rand allocation, and 4.61 million has also been allocated for the continuation of the 22-23 Booster Fund for this year. I'm also excited to confirm that the new iteration of the SMME Booster Fund for 2023 will be launched in the next few weeks. This fund is demand-led and it's a collaborative model to help enhance SMMEs and the SMME ecosystem to selected and targeted categories of SMMEs and entrepreneurs, which include businesses that are youth-owned, women-owned, owned by people living with disabilities, and to support township-based businesses. Another great partnership which is making a difference in improving opportunities for residents is the ICANN Centre in Elsie's River, which is a flagship and pioneering community-based centre developed in partnership with the City of Cape Town, which provides digital skills programs. This impressive centre has had more than 94,000 visitors to date and has provided over 13,627 trade. It's a combination of free, donor-funded and paid courses, providing opportunities and value for money for those who seek to learn at the centre. It offers both entry-level and vendor-certified vocational digital skills training and has also received accreditation from the MICT-CETA for 2 ICT qualifications. This unique offering positions the ICANN Centre as a place of empowerment and hope for a better future. All of the programs I've spoken to work on the principles which underpin our new growth for job strategy, which sets out that the role of the state is to facilitate economic opportunity for citizens by expanding choice and the independence of its residents without limiting individual freedom. In support of this principle is the further understanding that redress, which is needed to correct the wrongs of the achieved by pulling more people into the economy, by stimulating competition, improving skills and productivity, raising investment, reducing poverty, and increasing employment for a fair society. Guided by our core values of accountability, competence, integrity, responsiveness, care, respect, and innovation, and by implementing our bold economic plan that envisages a provincial economy that achieves breakout economic growth, resulting in sufficient employment and opportunity, and we will generate confidence, hope, and prosperity for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That now brings us to the end of interpellations. We move over to questions as printed on the order paper. I wish to advise the honourable members that once the honourable Premier or Minister has started the reply to the oral question, please use the chat facility for the sitting of the House to indicate they want to have a follow-up question, and when they mean the chat, it goes up. There are 4 opportunities and question, the first opportunity to respond. I recognise the Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and thank you very much to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition for this question. Obviously, if you look at the question, I had to consult it, and so part A, the Cabinet Minute clearly indicates the intention of the Cabinet for the priorities in question to remain in the ownership of the Western Cape. The decision to cancel the Memorandum of Understanding was conveyed by the Western Cape Government to the National Minister of Human Settlements, provided that for a 1-month notice terminate this agreement. As per the cancellation notification, the cancellation of the MOU did not detract from the provincial government's commitment to enter into agreements with the housing on a project-by-project basis within the framework of the cooperative government or cooperative governance to develop suitable land for housing in the Western Cape. And then B and C part of the question, and I'll go through these parcels of land. The first one, portion of Earth 26439, Cape Town, in the extent approximately 18.8 hectares. And this piece of land is in the process of enablement to rezone and acquire development rights for, first of all, an eco-neighborhood, an integrated education space, for affordable housing, for public facilities, and for open spaces, while providing equitable access to cultural heritage. Second piece of land for Constantia. The intended development proceed as the property is in an area classified by planning as discouraged development. And so that's the position of that piece of property right now. The remainder of Earth 3331 Constantia leased to the American International School of Cape Town until the end of that lease, which is 2031. For education purpose, Earth 035, also in Constantia, transferred to the Constantia land restitution beneficiaries on the 25th of March 2020 under title deed. So perhaps linked to the earlier discussions in this House, that piece of land was transferred to as part of land restitution. Portion 10 and 18 of the farm Justenburg Vlakte Paarl Rural repairs to the residential units have commenced, and this is for the use of or continued use of human settlements. Earth 30470 Cape Town. This comprises of, and it's got 28297, and so it goes through, but of course you'll get this in writing. There are 14 different sub-earths of this property at Mowbray. This process of engagement with the University of Cape Town for student accommodation. Then Earth 2428 Para Ravensmead. This was transferred to the city on the 27th of March 2019 for housing purposes on that portion. And the portion that is not being housing is being developed as the Ravensmead CDC. Earth 1588 Constantia Plumstead. This was allocated to the Western Cape Education Department for the utilization for the Norman Henschelwood High School. Earth 78141 Cape Town Southfield. This is reserved for restitution and housing development. Earth 3842 Philippi. This is allocated to the Education Department for the Vusikiela Secondary School. Then Earth 24 Cottonbos, currently in the process 39 Wilderness. This is an informal settlement. Has potential for further in situ upgrades in partnership with the George Municipality. Earth 331 Hookville Wilderness Heights, currently being let to an NPO to be included as part of an envisaged upgrade of informal settlement. Then portion 1 of Farm 544 Cape Rural District. This land has been subject to a large-scale invasion and has been deproclaimed as a nature reserve. Then Earth 952 Kleinvlei is reserved for future government needs. This is health and education. Strand is vacant. Earth 109533 Cape Town, Charlesville, for forms part of a land available for human settlement development, Earth 17030 Belleville Belhar development emerging housing, and is being considered and planned for at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Premier. Honourable Dagmore, you posed the question.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. At Western Cape Cabinet, led by former Premier Zille and including the current Premier, in 2009 decided to take back all these properties. And given further that it is now 2023, which is 14 years later, it is clear from the answer of the Premier that not a single human settlement has been built on this land. No, you've got plans, you've got there's not. I asked, the question was very clear, which said that how many houses have been built on each property. And in the response that you gave now, unless you're going to give me something else in writing, it's clear that this DA provincial government took back the land from that was going to go to the agency house physically. And that's why we are going to each one of these properties we've been to, and there's nothing. So the reality is that this government is clearly not building houses on land where we could have had progress. And that is why I want to ask the Premier, why has not a single human settlement, a single house been built on these properties which you and Honourable Zille took back from the HDA in 2009, 13 years ago?
Thank you very much. Premier. Over to you, Premier.
Thank you.
Order, members.
Thank you very much, and again to the honourable member. Let's first get to the real issue here. And I'm sure the House needs to be reminded of this. These properties that were taken back before the election in 2019. Suddenly, the ANC government in this, 2009, sorry. The day before the election in 2009, the day before the election in 2009, the ANC government in this province transferred all of these pieces of land.
That's what was done by Bito municipality in 94.
Honourable Vimbi.
To the national
government. Municipality did the same thing in 1995.
No, you can't have interjections if you're online. Just 1 minute, Premier. Honourable Vimbi, that's out of order, please. Thank you. Please allow the Premier to complete his feedback. Thank you. Over to you, Premier.
So the day before they transferred, of course, they understood the day before the election. They knew they were going to lose the election. And then, I mean, I was looking at what was part of that. That already fired from that cabinet. They transferred this land. Let me thinking about the transfer of this land and what national government. I've just read out to you exactly what happens to all of these pieces, or what is happening to all of these pieces of land. Now, of course, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of land are in the human settlements process. Some of them existing human settlements or houses on them that are being refurbished. Other ones are being developed or have already been handed over to City of Cape Town or in negotiating with other municipalities for human settlements. But that very same reason as to why we did not want to hand these pieces of land over to the ANC, because when this ANC party was in power in the city of Cape Town, they made a massive mistake, because they transferred land to the national government, not in 2009, but in 2006, they transferred a piece of land to the national government. And this honourable member stands here and he says the DA has absolutely done nothing. Now, I spent the whole time answering this question to tell you exactly what's happening on every earth of this, on every earth. On every earth,
Order, members.
I gave you a detail of everything that's happening on each of those pieces of property. The piece of land that was handed in 2006 by Noma Indem Faketu when she was the mayor, she handed it also to the national government. They should have reversed it then and there. Do you know what piece of land this is? Do you know what piece of land
in 1994
this piece of land
did the same thing? They transferred the golf course. They transferred the golf course in 1996.
District 6.
Speaker,
golf
is this a
course
free for all
in
for all
Plettenberg Bay.
interjections? Mr. Gumby must be called to order.
And if ever there was a piece of land that should have been used to address the absolute injustice of apartheid, it should be this piece of land, an absolute flagship piece of land. Can you imagine if the Democratic Alliance had this piece of land called District 6 and we were busy doing 2 or 3 times the size of Conradi on that piece of land right now, making the biggest difference possible for the citizens of this province? And so if this honourable member wants me to go through how many, since that piece of land, we stopped that piece of land being transferred to the ANC, who would have done absolutely nothing with it. And I've told you exactly what we're doing with all of those pieces of land. But at the same time, in this government, if I take each year by year, the number of housing units handed over and the number of service sites handed over year by year by year, actually ends up to 96,455 housing units, and service sites another 85,659. That gives you 235,853 opportunities handed to citizens in this province by this government. If we'd given that land to the ANC, they would have treated it exactly the same way that they've treated District 6. In actual fact, next year at the election, we will reverse that and we will get that land handed back. And can you imagine Conradi-style developments with housing opportunities and schools and work opportunities all in this space called District 6? We will make that difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Premier. Honourable Dugmore. Honourable Dugmore.
Deputy Speaker.
Honourable Dugmore, just give me a second, if you
Sorry?
can just have a seat for a second. Please, Honourable Wimby, Honourable Murray, Rule 40 states very clearly on a hybrid sitting that you can't interject via and shout down the microphone. So if you want to be part of the interjections, you have to be here in person because we can't have you interjecting online. I recognise you, Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I want to remind the Premier of the question. The question specifically says, in regard to these properties, how many houses have been built on each property? And the reality is, not a single house has been built. And the Premier is actually misleading this House because that was my question. And if you're shaking your head, can you show me or tell me now on which of these 7? The truth is, and that brings me to my last question, that all these properties which were given back to them in places like Constantia, the DA has refused to build a single house on any of these properties. And I can assure you, if the HDA, the Housing Development Association, had those properties in 13 years, the DA did not build a single house. Don't tell me about 260,000 on other properties. I asked you a question through the Speaker. I asked the Premier a question, and I'd like you to consider this, Deputy Speaker, because my question, and which I want to repeat, how many houses have been built on each property since 2009? That is the question. Can you please answer the question through the Deputy Speaker?
Thank you. Over to you, Premier.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. As I've said already, and I'm not going to read all of this out again, some of these pieces of land have been redistributed to citizens who've made claims against the piece of land. Some of these pieces of land are in human settlements' hands for housing development. Some of them have got existing human settlements on them, and we are upgrading those houses. And some of them have, as I've said, got schools on them or been allocated to schools. I've told you exactly what's happening on every single one of these pieces of land. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognise Honourable Fry.
Thank you.
Order members. Order members. Okay, I can hear you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I want to thank the Premier for his detailed response. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we all know that the need for affordable housing is great across South Africa, and that the ANC national government is sitting on vast stretches of land unused, which are in prime locations to provide housing. So I wish to ask the Premier whether there has been any indication or commitment from the national government to release mega properties such as Acacia Park and the Easterplaat, Wingfield and Youngsfield military bases to accelerate the province and city's commitment to provide affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Premier. 1 minute on Honourable Dagmar, your point of order.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. If you look at the question, this is a very specific question. I want to ask you to rule on whether the question by Honourable Fry as a follow-up, given that it has nothing to do with this particular question, which talks about particular properties. Can you indicate whether Honourable Fry's question is allowed, given that it doesn't relate to the topic?
Honourable Dagmar, the question on human settlement is not for me to decide. The Premier decides that's a new question. He's not answering it. I cannot make a decision on substance. So I'm going to allow the Premier to proceed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And to the Honourable Fry, thank you very much for that question. Again, asking a question about land. And you know that we've made many, many applications. The interesting thing was that, and we have a new member of Good in the House today, but when the previous minister, or just recently previous minister, that was actually responsible for public works, she was the custodian of the land when she was the mayor. And I want to say that she actually wrote to the national government to say, please, we want you to transfer more land for us to make real meaningful changes for human settlement, and specifically those pieces of military land. So obviously the Good are part of the ANC in the coalition government with the ANC, and it was interesting that when she got into the ANC at the national level, they obviously said to her, no, you can be part of this government, but you no ways are you going to give extra land to the Western Cape, because the ANC are, first of all, incapable of delivering. They are incapable.
Take your seat. 1 minute. Honourable Barnes, Honourable Benford, there's a point of order, Premier. There's a point of order. Honourable members, please, I have a point of order. If you can just take your seat. Honourable de Villiers, what's your point of order?
Ma'am, there's no way that the Premier can say that we in coalition with anybody.
Thanks, Honourable de Villiers.
I want him to take it back, because that is a lie.
Honourable de Villiers, that is not a point of order. The Premier may proceed. Order members.
Thank you.
Order members. Honourable Benford. Honourable Benford.
You can use your 1 billion.
Honourable Benford. 1 minute, the Premier is ready to speak. You may proceed, Premier.
Thank you very much. So if I can just finish that part of the question, and that is that the ANC are absolutely incapable of delivering, because otherwise they would give us these chapter and verse of these amazing models in Limpopo, or these amazing delivery models in KZN or in the Free State or in Gauteng. They're not able to do that. They are incapable. But that is why they want to punish the citizens of this province and not transfer those pieces of land that can be properly utilized for making sure, and that's the real land issue here. They hold on to it because they want to punish the citizens. Well, the citizens are going to punish them next year at the polls. And then I do want to say, Honourable Deputy Speaker, that the
what about the lands that belongs to you as Western Cape? Leave
No. Please,
alone.
can we mute the member? No, please. That's against Rule 40. No interjections online. You may proceed, Premier.
Thank you very much. And I just want to say through you, Deputy Speaker, that to the Honourable Member of Good, is that the ANC and Good are absolutely in coalition. in a number of municipalities, they are working together and failing
utilize
the
the lands that we have in the Western Cape.
Order. A cabinet minister from Good is responsible for land in this country and does not deliver to the citizens. They are part of the national cabinet, that political party. So they can't say, no, we're not part of this coalition or we're not part of government. They are absolutely part of government, and they are failing the citizens just as the ANC are failing the citizens of this province. And when you work together in a government, that is called a coalition.
Thank you very much, Premier. Honourable Dugmore, that is your last opportunity, number 4. To a question.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Given that the Premier in his response has admitted that not a single house was built on any of these particular properties, I would like to ask him again whether he would actually formally answer the question as to question 1C. How many houses have been built on each property? Actual houses built between 2009 and 2023, which is 13 years. Because, Honourable Deputy Speaker, I would suggest that the Premier is lying to this House. I would suggest that he is lying and he's refusing to answer the question and admit that the DA government has not on those properties in the years spanning 2019 built a single house. So I would like, as a final question, to ask, are you lying to this House, Honourable Deputy Speaker, to the Premier, or could you actually tell us and admit that not a single physical house from planning to actually completion of construction has been built? Can you please, through Speaker, tell the House the truth?
Thank you, Premier.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. No, I'm not lying to the House.
Thank you very much. That ends the question 1. We move over to question 2. I recognise the Honourable Minister Simmers.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And once again, thank you for the Honourable Member Maran for agreeing to let it stand over because I was booked off sick. I didn't run away like certain people told this House. Honourable Deputy Speaker, several project sites have been subject to violent disruptions. The full causes of the disruptions are difficult to discern as contractors are reluctant to divulge information fully to the department. A significant portion of the disruptions seems to be linked to extortionary tactics that may be associated with what has been characterized by research groups and the media as the construction mafia type activities. Violence, extortion, and intimidation in housing projects may be carried out by, firstly, so-called business forums, which are local associations of businesses, extorting contracts for members by threatening violence and disruption, and sometimes actually doing it, or groups loosely defined as gangsters, extorting contracts for small local contractors, which ultimately may then be required to pay protection money to these so-called gangsters or business forums. It is unclear whether gangsters demanding protection money should be considered in the same category as the construction mafia, given the disparate modus operandi of the group, which may require its own set of separate targeted interventions. Towards the end of 2022, my department held a roundtable discussion to consider the impact of the construction mafia on departmental housing construction projects. The purpose of the meeting was for regional and project teams to recount the experiences in projects involving violent disruptions on construction sites that may be due to the construction mafia and point to any solutions to coil disruptions that may have proved effective. My department employs various strategies to counter the scourge of violence, extortion, and intimidation by gangs in and or on housing projects. As a department, we work closely with the community leadership, which includes project steering committees, sub-council managers, and, yes, ward councillors. Regular contact is maintained with SAPS, Public Order Policing Service, and the City of Cape Town's law enforcement. Cases of threats of extortion, intimidation, and shooting incidents are also registered with SAPS. Further to this, the department also requests both SAPS and law enforcement to conduct daily routine patrols to our various sites. My department has also improved security on sites through private security deployment to various projects. In some instances, this may require specialized security services to reinforce security on sites to ensure safe and conducive working conditions for all the workers. The responses mainly encompass measures directly aimed at preventing violence occurring on building sites through limiting access to sites via physical and legal means and increasing security. These measures may close off a key tactic of extortionary actors, but they raise project costs and may inadvertently represent an accession to the demands of extortionists to employ the local businesses they favour or to which they are connected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I recognise the Honourable Maran. Is he not here? Okay, then you may proceed, Honourable Member. I recognise you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. My question to the Minister would be if there are any houses that are, in fact, projects that have been delayed for more than a year as a result of extortion, and if so, what are the interventions that are put in place and how many beneficiaries are affected? Thank you.
Thank you. Minister?
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and thank you to the member for the follow-up question. If it's in order through you, Deputy Speaker, to the member, I can actually provide a detailed list of sites and how many beneficiaries have been affected, because there is quite a number of projects in the city of Cape Town and also a few in the non-metro areas which have been affected by these forms of extortion. So I would love to empower the member with the correct information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable America.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, housing projects all across the province are being delayed due to the growing number of land invasions. Has your department identified any specific groups of people or organizations who are encouraging these land invasions? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. Minister? Yes.
Pleasure, Minister. Minister, housing projects all across the province are being delayed due to the growing number of land invasions. Has your department identified any specific groups of people or organizations who are encouraging these land invasions? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Over to you, Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And I'll answer the member in two stages, because the one part I've briefly touched on my formal response to Member Maran, which is these so-called business forums, which are now becoming prevalent on many of the sub-councils in the city of Cape Town, for instance, where we do have projects, and even the city of Cape Town have projects. We are also seeing its ugly head rearing itself in the non-metro areas by operating under the auspices of these so-called business forums. But ultimately, they seek to extort and prevent a fair and transparent process in terms of those individuals that get afforded an opportunity on the site by the main contractor. Secondly, we have also various lessons that we've learned since 2019, and indeed, sadly, Honourable Member, certain political parties are playing a very coordinated role. We have seen this, for instance, at Forest Village, which is a project which is nearly 99% complete, where a specific political party actively encouraged construction happening on site, and we were forced actually to approach the High Court for an urgent interdict to prevent that from happening and to ensure that construction does follow through on that site. We have also seen where we do try to gain access to informal settlements to do enumeration studies, Honourable Deputy Speaker, through you to the member. Once again, where political parties play a very central role in asking their members present in these specific informal settlement areas to prevent my department and even NPOs or NGOs to gain access so that we can do proper and full enumeration to assess the true state and the need within those informal settlements. So indeed, Honourable Member, through Deputy Speaker, it's a mixture of both, but we are seeing at some point that there is a true convergence of certain political parties fronting through these business forums, because they even seek to extort and gain possible funding through these acts of extortion on various sites across the Western Cape. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognise the Honourable Lecker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I would like to ask the MEC with regards to F8448 in the city of Cape Town, the stretch that starts in Gugulethu towards Old Crossroads in Nyanga. What are the delays? What has been done with regards to his first article that was in the newspaper speaking about extortion? From that time up until now, what has been done besides the 26 housing units that were handed over to community members? Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and through you to the ANC Chief Whip. Thank you for that question as well. If it's in order, I can provide the member with actually a very detailed response in formal writing. Once again, that the member is empowered, because there are certain projects, one which concerns supposed to be and the impact of extortion, of the so-called business forums on our own progress on specific project sites, ballooning the security cost as we speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further? I've got hands up. I will give it to Honourable Christians. As you did it exactly. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Just the question. The Minister aware of certain housing projects where people moving and they're not the beneficiaries and they pay councillors to occupy houses? Minister aware of those projects? Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Firstly, I am not aware of any such project because beneficiaries are approved. They sign a deed of sale prior to getting their keys from the Provincial Department, which we then obviously do through the local municipality. However, what we have on the Christian Speaker is that some of these legally qualifying beneficiaries do sign for their keys to actually then get approached by some of these business forums, or even organized syndicates offering them massive amounts in cash to rent these units. Now, sadly, according to the way the process works, Deputy Speaker, the ward councillor or the city of Cape Town's council structure needs to inform the housing department and accordingly build up a paper trail to act on this. But we have been alerted to this. We have certain provincial projects where this has been happening. We have approached actually, Honourable Deputy Speaker, through you to the member, the State Attorney for a legal opinion regarding what happens once we have given that key. And they actually act illegally because for the first 8 years, there are specific reasons which they must apply for that will allow them to sell the house, yes, but I need to authorize that as the custodian of those projects. But other than that, they are actually not allowed to sell those units. It's a bit of a grey area in terms of renting out or leasing of these houses, which is the State Attorney's opinion, which we have received. We are busy formalizing actually an SOP, which we will be engaging local government on, because it's becoming a massive problem, given that in certain projects, even military veterans, in certain projects in the city, has wholesale been sold or rented out to organized crime to such a state that those local ward councils are now actually doing up petitions asking us how can we actually take back those units. Hence my approach to the State Attorney for a legal opinion, because it is becoming a very massive problem for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of question 5. We now move over to new questions. I recognise the Minister Mayor.
Deputy Speaker, daar is tans geen uitvoerstatistiek wat die aanname ondersteun dat die Wes-Kaapse handel met Rusland in gedrang is weens die premier se verklaring nie. Dit is egter ook belangrik om daarop te let dat daar sedert COVID-19 pandemie groot ontwrigtings in markte was en die Russiese inval in Oekraïne het onstabiliteit en wêreldwye kommoditeitspryse verhoog. Die tweede gedeelte van die vraag, achtbare adjunct speaker, daar was geen formele of negatiewe reaksie waargeneem of ontvang deur die departement van die landbouorganisasies oor die premier se verklaring nie. En in die 4de kwartaal van 2022 het die Wes-Kaap landbouprodukte ter waarde van
What is the number of companies from the province that are benefiting from the trade relations between Russia and the Western Cape, and whether the MEC has reached out to them after the Premier's reckless remarks, and what is their reaction to the unfortunate sentiments? Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
Achtbare adjunct speaker, ek sal daardie inligting graag na die huis wil bring. Van die vraag is, hoeveel van daardie maatskappye is in Russiese besit tussen die Wes-Kaap en Rusland? Daardie inligting is nie tot my beskikking nie, maar ook geen verdere inligting is aan daardie maatskappye onder my aandag gebring nie.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Through you to the Minister, if the Minister can perhaps give us a comparison of how foreign investment, the West, the UK, EU, and the United States compare with the trade relations that the Western Cape or South Africa has with the Russian Federation.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Adjunct Speaker, ek het spesifiek ook na daardie inligting gekyk, want die agri-export from the West to the United States is in the region of 25.4 billion. Agri-export from the Western Cape to the European Union is in the region of 245 billion, and this therefore 270 billion, whereas our agri-export to Russia is only 33.2 billion rand. It's only 9%, whereas the rest is 81%.
Thank you very much. Honourable Barnes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Through you, Deputy Speaker, is the Western Cape considering to pull out of all trade relations with Russia? Or what contingency plan does the department have to close the gap of this astronomical injection into the province? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Minister.
Well, Deputy Speaker, I have just indicated now that the trade between the Western Cape and Russia only constitute 9%. But the question is, are we considering withdrawing from these particular trade agreements? Well, this is particularly not the mandate of this government to withdraw from such agreements. This is the mandate of the Minister, of the Honourable Member belonging to her party. And I would rather ask that she put that question to the Minister of DTI in the National Assembly.
Thank you very much. Honourable Bosman.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Once again, through you.
Order, members.
Through you to the Minister. Minister, are you aware that the Governor of the Reserve Bank has warned the South African government of the devastating impact of possible sanctions on the South African economy as a result of the controversy around Lady R, the Russian ships, and specifically the serious allegations made by the US ambassador of potential weapons export to Russia? Inform the House on the impact that such international sanctions would have on the economy of the West Cape.
Thank you, Minister.
Well, Honourable Deputy Speaker, thank you to Honourable Member Bosman. We know that the South African economy, but also particularly the Western Cape economy, is linked to the global economy, and therefore it has serious implications, as reported by the Governor of the Reserve Bank. Should any sanctions be imposed on South Africa, certainly it will lead to massive job losses, massive return of foreign direct investment, and this is certainly something that we cannot afford in South Africa. And I think when the Governor of the Reserve Bank issues such a notice or a warning, it is something that we need to take serious, because as the Governor of the Central Bank, responsible for monetary policy and the flow of money, both internationally and locally, I think this is a serious warning. And because of this, the Premier will soon invite the Governor of the Reserve Bank to address the Cabinet in this regard.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of question 2. We move over to question 3. I recognise the Honourable Minister Bredell.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and thank you to the Honourable Member Lacker for the question. All provinces were affected by the proposed stopping and reallocation of the conditional grants. The Annual Division of Revenue Act, DORA, allows for the transfer of grant funds to be stopped if National Treasury identifies that the funds are unlikely to be spent. This is one of the grant management tools provided for in DORA. Section 18.2 of DORA and Section 38 of the MFMA sets out the requirements for the process that National Treasury must follow before stopping of grant funds. All municipalities were provided with an opportunity to object to the proposed stopping of the grant funds, and the Provincial Treasury were informed. Some of the factors that led to the stopping of these grants includes the delays and late appointment of contractors due to the supply chain capacity challenges and non-responsive tenders. An example of this is where a municipality went through the whole entire procurement process only for the appointed contractor indicating that they do not have the required capacity to do the work, and then the process must start all over again. Delays during construction is another reason that we've picked up due to unforeseen circumstances, not during the planning stages. An example of this where a project were in progress and were well down the planning line. However, when they opened up the land, there was an unforeseen pipe that they couldn't plan for, and then delays in the construction phase. It should be noted that as funds are only stopped where they were already unlikely to be spent, the Finance Minister decided to stop a portion of the relevant grant, therefore does not impact service delivery. The amounts stopped are also then reallocated to municipalities that can accelerate their spending, understanding that the impact of service delivery would also need to be account of this accelerated delivery in municipalities that benefit from the reallocation of the funds. The core for me in this question is the following, Honourable Deputy Chair, Speaker, and that is that a total of 61.3 million in grant funds was stopped from the Western Cape municipalities, while a total of 454.9 million was reallocated towards the Western Cape. So yes, we lost 60 million, but we gained 455 million, plus minus. The Western Cape Department of Local Government regularly engaged municipalities before and during and after the stoppage process. Interventions before the stoppage process include monitoring and evaluation meetings by the department's project managers. So we've got meetings with all the municipalities, sit down with them because we really want to help and assist them to spend the money. Then the professional support and technical advising services by the Department of Engineers, intervention meetings by Provincial MIC manager. There they assess the progress and look at possible red tape issues, identify key risks, provision of advice to and guidance to the municipalities, and facilitation and support from various stakeholders. Then also the management meetings with municipal managers by chief directors responsible for the units. So if they've gone through the first process and we're still worried and we still don't get the reaction, we then escalate it to the municipal managers and chief directors, ensuring accountability for the grant progress and require interventions from the relevant accounting officers and addressing specific challenges. Then the next phase, the intervention during the stoppage process, when we see that we cannot go further and that National is going to stop, then assisting the municipalities with the preparation, because there's also engagement. National don't just send the email, they engage with us, and we support the municipalities in making their case, participating in the stopping engagement to ensure recommendations are fair and does not affect service delivery, and assist municipalities with their responses to National Treasury. And then the last phase, interventions after the stoppage. We engage with each municipality during May 2023 to adjust their planning to account for the impact of stoppages will have on the implementation of the current projects, and then continuation of monitoring and evaluation, as well as professional support and technical advisory service. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honourable Lecker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Firstly, I think it is important to note that the intervention by the national government points to a failure by this MEC's department to ensure that non-performance in municipalities do not take place. And maybe for a party and a provincial government that likes to brag about how great they are, this is definitely a scandal. And no amount is little. And therefore, I think it is important that the MEC tells us why did his department not prevent at all that this scandal from happening does not take place in the first place.
Thank you, Minister.
The scale of these things, and I understand the members' question, and that's his right, but I can ensure that we work very closely with municipalities. We're the only province here and here who spend over 90% of MIC. But there will be unforeseen circumstances. You open up a piece of land and there's a pipe, big pipe. It's not small pipes, it's big. Then they must stop, safety issues and run out of time. And it's also not that they lose the money. Most of these cases, the money will be just shifted to the next financial year, like a rollover. But they must first hand it back. The core of this is that we manage, because we very hands-on with our municipalities, we manage to gain plus minus 455 million, where we had to say, sorry, there's 60 million we cannot spend. So we actually, there's a net gain. But if we go on like this, then we must look at the different municipalities. And we can go there, but then we go into a political debate on this, because there's only one DA-run municipality who haven't spent 2 million rand. The rest all ANC municipalities. So then we can go there. But it's a struggle, but we're very hands-on. And the sad part of this is that we would love to get the niceness to spend their money because it speaks to service delivery to the people. It's the same people who elected them. And we love to get Beaufort West to spend their money. And so people must hold them accountable, their leaders. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable America.
Thank you, Deputy. Minister, as highlighted in the recently released Auditor General's Audit Outcomes Report from municipalities, Beaufort West, Kanaland, and the challenge. Is the department receiving any aid or assistance from the National Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs to help remedy these ailing municipalities? Thank you, Deputy Chair. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Minister?
Actually, we need to have a serious debate on that question. Obviously, I'm a firm believer that we all need to work together, but currently, the system and the Swiss government makes it very difficult for us we cannot interfere. We must work with the municipalities. We've got the plans. Minister Murray can testify, we've got Beaufort West under 139.5, but we cannot do the work on their behalf. And to go there with your teams, you spend hours and hours of time there, and as soon as you left, they just go on with their old nonsense. So it's very difficult for a province to just intervene. I'm a firm believer that if we want to save municipalities, you're not going to save it through a DDM model or any model, but we need to look at the new financial model. We need to bring back discipline within the municipalities, and we need seriously to discuss consequence management. If you don't act, like if you take the Auditor General's report, if you're diverse audit opinion, there must not be a case you're under administration because you cannot do your job. We must stop having all these long court cases and get dragged out by people actually just filling their back pockets. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable Lecker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. With regards to municipalities that were affected, be it which political party that municipality is controlled by, what systems are there in place? Is it not the minister's responsibility to ensure that non-performance is attended to avoid such? Thank you.
Thank you. Minister?
Yes, and that's exactly what we do. That's why we spend over 90% of our money. And those municipalities who want to work with us, they manage to spend their money. It's those who don't want to work with us, who ignore us,
We don't rock up or come to the sessions when we train them, when we go with our red tape unit to go and support them. They ignore the system and they play politics with the system, and then now they must go and explain to their voters why they haven't spent their money. It's a simple democratic principle. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, can you perhaps share with us what, in general, the percentage of capital budgets being spent by municipalities in the Western Cape, and how does it compare with those municipalities in other provinces? Would you consider it to be good, excellent, or bad? Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
Chairperson, thank you. Capital spending is very important. I think we're doing fairly well. We're not where we should be because there's a lot of factors playing into this. I think what we've missed, a lot of municipalities in their budget process, is also population growth and the impact that's got on your services. For instance, if 125,000 people move to the Western Cape, we're going to need 25 million litres of extra water next year. And I don't think those equations we bring into the debate within our local government sphere, and therefore our 15-year water plan is such a good plan, because it puts that economic growth and population growth that we cannot escape from upfront, so that municipalities can use it as a planning tool. And that's the kind of systems that we support municipalities with. But now in the budget, the municipalities understand the importance of putting the budget behind that plan. We cannot force them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. That brings us to the end of question 3. I will move over to question 4. I recognise Minister Meyer.
Dankie, achtbare adjunkspreker, aan achtbare meneer Petmaran. Die Wes-Kaapse provinsie is nie eintlik 'n groot produsent van mielies nie, aangesien dit 'n somergewas is. Daar is wel 'n beperkte hoeveelheid wat wel geproduseer word. Saaklik ook wat onder besproeiing is vir diere voer. Om hierdie rede voer die provinsie nie mielies uit nie, en dis is geen boere in die provinsie in die verband byvoorbeeld as gevolg van dit nie.
Thank you very much. Honourable Barnes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, Green SA has said China is a consistent buyer in global markets, and gaining access opens a potential big export relationship for South Africa. Hopefully, this is the beginning of a constant export relationship which helps to stimulate local grain production, close quote. Given this view by Green SA and the potential of gaining access into the Asian market, what plans and strategies are in place to ensure the Western Cape farmers are not left behind and they actually take advantage of these trades? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Minister.
Adjunkspreker, ja, dit is korrek. En nou, ons is ook 'n graanprodusent en 'n graanprodusente streek, maar jy weet dat daar in terme van die wêreldbehoefte is ons ook we are also a net importer of wheat, because we cannot produce completely in the nature of the country, so we're an importer. And we also know that the difficulties that emerge as a result of the war in Ukraine, because Russia and Ukraine is responsible for about 40% of the global wheat export. What we do in the Western Cape, we have some engagements with China. We have engagements with the particular different markets, particularly the wine market. We had regular exhibitions, wine tasting events, both in Hong Kong, but also in mainland China, because that's a huge market, particularly red wine, which is very favorable in that particular market. So we will do everything possible for our farmers to continue with exports. In fact, this department have allocated, for example, to SATI, which is the South African table grape industry, 2 million rand, also to get into that market. And I am happy to report to this House that had a massive knock-on effect in terms of further growth in terms of exports in that particular market. It is a global big market, and we will do everything possible. The Premier will also later this year also undertake a visit to Shandong in China. We understand we have a bilateral relationship with China in terms of the Regional Leaders Summit, which consists of the following regions: Quebec in Canada, Bavaria in Germany, Upper Austria in Austria, as well as Sao Paulo in Brazil, as well as Shandong in China. So all of this, a very important part of our international trade relations.
Thank you very much. Honourable Bosman.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Through you, I note that the Minister has said that the Western Cape is not a net importer of wheat, that the Western Cape contributes the least, and I think the research shows it's just over 36,000 tonne. Noting the Free State is the largest exporter of corn. Can I perhaps ask if the Minister is prepared to provide an educational opportunity to the Standing Committee and perhaps educate members of the opposition in terms of what the main exports of the Western Cape is? And noting the second part of how the question is framed by Honourable Moran in terms of asking the Minister to respond on behalf of the whole of South Africa, does the Minister perhaps have insight over whether Moran thinks that Minister Ivan Maideka will be heading to the buildings next year?
Minister.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, thank you to Honourable Member Gillian for that question. I am quite happy if there's a request from the Chair of the Standing Committee to come and brief the Standing Committee on our trade relations. I think members of this House will know that one of my strategic priorities through the member de Villiers, one of my strategic priorities in this post is market access, because for us it is very important. You will also know that the Western Cape is 10% of the population. You will also know that the Western Cape is also 10% of the geographical area of South Africa, being 129,000 square kilometers in size against 1.3 million square kilometers in size South Africa. And because of that, we are now responsible for 55% of South Africa's agricultural export. So market access is very important. We are a net exporter of fruit. We also, South Africa not only is for all the agricultural exports goes on the African continent, and we are particularly happy as in the context of the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement. So this is very, very good news. But should the state require some further information in terms of trade relations, we are happy to do so. Whether I'm heading towards the union buildings, I think the voters will decide next year. But honourable member have that confidence in me. I will certainly take it up with the honourable member and even just provide me with the necessary documentation. So I'm ready to sign the declaration into the union buildings.
Thank you very much. Are there any further responses, questions? No, that brings us to the end of questions. Our time is up. We will now, outstanding replies will be printed in Hansard. We now move over to statements by members in terms of Rule 145. I recognise the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I want to use my member statement today to express my sincere gratitude to the countless men and women who have worked so incredibly hard to cut down the amount of violent crime in the Western Cape province. This week saw the release of the latest crime statistics, which cover the first quarter of this calendar year. While I am aware that I have stated this in my debate speech earlier, I feel it bears repeating. The Western Cape has seen a year-on-year reduction of 14.1% in murders and a 9.9% decrease in rape. In a country that has suffered from unspeakable levels of violence for so long, we cannot afford to overlook the significance of these figures. They prove beyond any doubt that the safety plan is working, and that this provincial government is on the right track. But there is still a lot more ground to cover. Even a single murder, rape, robbery, kidnapping, or instance of extortion is unacceptable. All of us must commit to the vision of a crime-free future for South Africa, and the South African citizen who must most urgently commit to this vision is Minister Bheki Cele. If he does, perhaps 2023 will finally be the year in which the minister uses his 100 billion rand budget
to end the under-resourcing of the SAPs in the Western Cape, and finally commit to intelligent and data-led crime-fighting strategies, the same strategies that have been proven by our Provincial Department of Community Safety and Police Oversight. I call on Minister Cele to urgently detail his plans for the Western Cape and to address the long-standing issues of policing in the strategy. The Western Cape has implemented policy that works, and it's high time that he does the same. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize the ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the ANC in the Western Cape notes the release of the 2022-2023 fourth quarter police recorded crime statistics and is elated by the 14.1% drop in the murder rate when compared to the same period last year. Every time crime worsens in the province, SAPS always takes the beating for it. And so it is correct that this decrease in the murder rate is attributed to its sterling work. The Western Cape, however, still maintained 8 stations in the top 30 murder stations, and we call on SAPS provincial management to put more focus on those stations where crime increased. This includes Nyanga, Guguletu, Mitchell's Plain, and Delft, which is in the top 3 nationally and number 1 in the province. Deputy Speaker, we welcome the decreased murders in Mfuleni, Harare, Kraaifontein, and Khayelitsha. All these stations are known for their history of violent crimes, especially mass murders. The SAPS management in the province, together with the CPFs and other community crime fighting structures, should be commended for their efforts to combat violent crimes in the province. And we call for more efforts to be put in those stations where violent crimes and murders continue to rise. The DA, through Premier Windy and MEC Ellen, must not be allowed to claim easy victories. More could have been achieved in the LEAP officers' work under direct SAPS command and were not made J.P. Smith's private army. And if the provincial government played its role addressing the spatial design by ensuring proper lighting and improved accessibility in crime hotspots. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. I recognize the EFF.
Hundreds of children across the Western Cape continue to walk long distances, crossing busy main roads and putting their lives at risk due to being forced to attend schools in other communities due to a shortage of space in their own. While some parents have no choice but to force the kids to walk, others are forced to make means of any affordable and available transport to get their children to these schools in other communities. And even though the province provides scholar transportation, not all are lucky enough to meet its requirements and benefit from it, forcing them to alternatives to access education. On Tuesday, while on her way to school, Pavi Shemaine from Tambo Village was killed while crossing Dainfontein Road in Heideveld when she was tragically hit by a taxi. In a separate incident on the same day, another 5 children were killed in a tragic accident on AZ Berman Drive, also while on their way to school in Mitchell's Plain when the bakkie they were traveling in lost control and crashed. These kids too were traveling from another community to attend schools in Mitchell's Plain. Some of them are said to have traveled from Khayelitsha. A few weeks before this, on the 24th of April, on the same street, around about the same time, another primary school student was killed and several others injured in a taxi crash also on AZ Berman Drive while traveling to school, once again also from Khayelitsha. 2 months before that, on the 29th of January, a matriculant was killed on the same road in a car accident. Just the day after, residents took to the streets to protest over traffic control and proper road measures to be implemented on AZ Berman Drive following ongoing incidents, or rather accidents. The fact of the matter is that the number of children being killed on this road has increased over the years, and yet nothing has been done despite the residents' pleas for assistance. The root cause of this is that many of these kids must walk or travel via public transportation out of their communities to access education and have to rush daily to make it in time for school, or else they would need to face consequences for late coming. The economic freedom fighters herewith notes how this DA-led municipality and provincial government have ignored the residents' pleas for assistance on several which has become daily for children walking or traveling to school, and call for stricter measures to be implemented when it comes to transporting school children, along with the visibility of law enforcement at all schools to ensure that no driver is intoxicated using an unroadworthy vehicle, and mainly transporting children in conditions which would endanger them.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Democratic Alliance.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, on Friday I tabled the Western Cape Provincial Powers Bill before the Standing Committee on Premier and Constitutional Matters. This bill is motivated by a recognition that the ANC national government is unable or unwilling to act in the best interests of the residents of the Western Cape. Declare in Ngoku, disnotate. Now is the time for the Western Cape Provincial Parliament and Executive to identify areas in which the assertion of provincial powers is necessary and explore all available legal steps to provide services to its residents. If passed, the Western Cape Provincial Powers Bill will play an important role in ensuring that the province assert existing powers or seek additional powers in the areas of policing, public transport, energy, trade, and harbours. Time and again, the people of the Western Cape have been failed by a national government that lacks the political will, urgency, and know-how to tackle the very serious challenges of rolling blackouts, failing infrastructure, economic strife, and runaway crime. Through this bill, the Western Cape can be empowered to, among other things, identify and remedy failures of national government, promote the assertion of existing provincial powers, and actively seek the assignment or delegation of additional power. The DA remains committed to the devolution of national powers to capable provincial governments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize Good.
Deputy Speaker, we hear daily about all the song and dance of this province, but we do not address the imbalances between rich and poor. It is a fact. Gutter education promotes crime in all its forms and in our province. The WCED should focus on the thousands of unplaced learners and appropriate schools that have parents struggling and panicking. We are now facing a lack of education, and I don't want to imagine what we are going to face a few years down the line. When Model C schools needed the numbers to secure pro-rata jobs, their doors were open to all. The schools in Mauriceburg, namely Durkhees, has turned people of color away to attend a school built in the area without any necessary facilities. Honorable Deputy Speaker, to prevent losing lives again, Good proposes the following: that the WCED revise the current school placement in place, that the WCED develop a transportation plan for learners traveling more than 2 kilometers to and from school, and that the WCED, in consultation with the safety portfolio, strengthen the measures in place. Honorable Deputy Speaker, Good expresses our heartfelt condolences to the families and the 5 children who has lost their lives, and call on this House to ensure complete support to the families and the one child recovering in hospital. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I recognise the ACDP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the ACDP in the Western Cape is absolutely mind-boggling that robbers will stoop so low to enter into a school and rob educators and learners of their cell phones and essential equipment from the school. To crown it all, the robbers hijacked the parents' car and sped off. This all happened while the grade 12 learners wrote their supplementary exams at the Nkolo Kaka Primary School, Kailicha, on Tuesday, the 30th of May. Learners who had the courage to rewrite supplementary exams are now traumatized due to the actions of these perpetrators. Speaker, the ACDP in the Western Cape urges residents to report this matter to the police if they have any information relating to this unfortunate incident. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I recognise the ANC.
Deputy Speaker, the ANC rises to express its disappointment in the cyber attack that has befallen this legislature. Even more so, the ANC wishes to note with utter dismay how the leadership of this institution has responded to the attack. Today is day 10 of the cyber attack. The Parliamentary Oversight Committee sat last week and we were briefed on the attack, but this briefing was indeed a briefing. The leadership of this institution has not taken political parties into confidence to admit that their systems were not sharp enough. The leadership of this institution has not been open and transparent about the extent of this attack. Transparency and accountability are precisely the values and characteristics of democracy that this House and its leadership should be promoting. The ANC has consistently criticized the bloated budget awarded to programs one of the WCPP budget, which is administration. When criticized the bloated office of the Speaker and the bloated office of the Secretary, we were told and assured that the reason for the huge increase in programs one budget was because of ITD services. Yet the reality remained 29% increase in the budget of the Office of the Speaker, 35% increase in the budget of the Office of the Secretary, and a decrease in 11% in institutional enablement. The budget for computer services was cut by 54%. There is no way we can blame ITDS staff for this cyber attack. They suffer under the tyranny of a WCPP leadership that continuously bloats their offices, while critical services such as ITDS have to suffer budget cuts. It is typical DA leadership: cuts for everyone else, cuts for essential services, cuts to critical budgets, but not cuts to the leaders. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, last week a certain member of this House brought wild accusations to the floor without them being substantiated. This follows a long history of certain members on the opposite side of the aisle willfully using their parliamentary protection to grandstand and besmirch the characters of others. Dit was onopreg vir die leier van die ANC om minister Simmers daarvan te beskuldig dat hy van laasweek se sitting weggehardloop het as gevolg van sekere beweringe. Soos gewoonlik is die ANC se weergawe van gebeure. Deputy Speaker, can I please be protected?
Order members. Order members.
Dit was onopreg vir die leier van die ANC om minister Simmers daarvan te beskuldig dat hy van laasweek se sitting weggehardloop het as gevolg van sekere beweringe, en kyk wie het nou weggehardloop. Soos gewoonlik is die ANC se weergawe van gebeure ver van die waarheid af. Die minister was nie in die huis nie weens sy siekteverklaring. Maar wat anders kan ons van die skynheilige ANC verwag? Unlike the ANC, the DA has a long track record of holding anyone accused of wrongdoing accountable, both inside and outside of our party. Honourable Speaker, the ANC throws stones from a glass house. They speak about running away from accountability.
But the victim is no longer working.
No, please move to the Honourable Member. Thank you. You may proceed.
Unlike the ANC, the DA has a long track record of holding anyone accused of wrongdoing accountable, both inside and outside of our party. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the ANC throws stones from a glass house. They speak about running away from accountability, yet they cannot even get their own house in order. Whilst we are all present and working today, Deputy Speaker, the ANC currently has got 2 members who have been suspended from party activities, yet they still draw taxpayer-funded salaries from this legislature. Honourable Deputy Speaker, since the Honourable Dagmo is so concerned about removing officials, I ask you, Deputy Speaker, when will those members accused of theft, corruption, fraud and excitement to murder be removed by your party from this House? I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Freedom Front Plus.
Speaker, thank you.
Honourable Member, please.
At least we deal.
Can you hear me?
You're going to have to speak up. Honourable members, can we please allow the Honourable Member to speak? You may proceed.
Speaker.
Where's your member?
No, 1 minute, please. Honourable Murray, just hold on. I cannot hear the Honourable Member online. Please, Honourable Members, we've given each one an opportunity. You may proceed, Honourable Murray.
Speaker, the preamble to the Western Cape Constitution begins with the words, in humble submission to Almighty God, we, the people of the Western Cape, emphasis on people of the Western Cape. Now, the Freedom Front recognized that the indigenous people of the Western Cape were the Khoi and the San, Griqua people. We also recognize the region was subsequently settled by successive waves of people, including Dutch, German, French, Malay, British Khons, which was an indigenous language of the Western Cape and which remains the most widely spoken language in the province. And we also recognize the demographic compositions of the people, which differ substantially from the rest of South Africa. Therefore, I give notice that as Freedom Front MP, I notice to both the Speaker and the Secretary and the Premier of my intention to formally record the will of the people of the Western Cape in a bill to be identified as a people who then, in accordance with customary international law, the injunction of which are affirmed in the South African Constitution, shall be entitled to exercise their right to self-determination and to provide for matters incidental thereto. This bill has already been given to the proper officials of Parliament, which I will be tabling as the Western Cape People's Bill.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Al-Jamaa.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy Speaker, Al-Jamaa extends its deepest condolences to the families, schools and communities on the tragic loss of 5 learners who died in a horrific road accident on their way to school on Tuesday, 30 May 2023. We pray for a speedy recovery for the injured learners. The Western Cape Education Department advocates that learner safety is very important for the department. The recent tragic accident tells a different story on the department's concern for learners' safety. Neither does the trauma learners endure daily when gangsters go on shooting sprees in and around school premises. Neither is the department concerned for learner safety when learners have to walk past several shebeens and drug dens on their way and back from school, exposing them to harassment and in many cases violent attacks from gangsters. To come back to Tuesday's tragic accident, it is deplorable that the department wants to shift the blame on parents to ensure safe school transport for their children. No parent will willfully put their children's safety at risk. The WCED must get to the bottom of this tragic case. It's a clear indictment on the WC's poor performance to ensure that every school is equipped with the necessary resources and have space to accommodate learners at schools closest to their homes and for the safe and secure learning environment, thus alleviating the burden on parents to fork out extra transport costs. Many parents do not have a choice to provide their children with the best transport to school. Parents
Thank you,
want their
Honourable Member.
children. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Time is up. I recognize the DA.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I've often drawn attention to the fact that our Provincial Department of Health and Wellness does not get the recognition it so clearly deserves. The provision of adequate healthcare is one of the most challenging aspects of service delivery for any government to get right. Even in wealthy countries, we see healthcare systems struggling under ever-increasing burdens. And in a country like ours, where disastrous economic policy has plunged our nation into darkness and despair, the provision of healthcare is more difficult than ever.
And yet, despite everything, this government is making progress. Recent months have seen our health department's 1.3 billion rand efforts towards aggressive infrastructure improvement and expansion begin to bear fruit. At the new Somerset Hospital in Cape Town, efforts are underway to improve the experience of patients by upgrading and expanding the hospital's operating theatres and constructing a new acute psychiatric unit. The Brackengate Transitional Care Facility is rapidly approaching fully operational status, meaning that even more beds will soon be available to lessen the number of patients seeking treatment at Helderberg, Eerste River, Tygerberg, and Karl Bremer hospitals. And finally, a 36 million rand project is underway to revitalize and expand Stellenbosch Hospital. Deputy Speaker, these initiatives prove that despite the horribly unfavorable situation created by the ANC government at the national level, DA governments remain capable of leading and delivering regardless. With this in mind, it is safe to say that the DA remains the only party capable of pulling the country as a whole out of its current predicament. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. That brings us to the end of statements. In terms of Rule 145.6, I now give one or more members of the Executive to respond to member statements for not more than 5 minutes collectively. Are there any ministers who would like to respond? No. We seem to be fine. That brings us to the end of member statements. Before I continue to the final part of the programme, I urge in remembering to wish the Honourable Minister Wenger a very happy birthday today. We now move over to motions, to notices of motion. In terms of Rule 151, all notices of motion are required to be delivered to the Secretary for placing on the order paper. These motions have been duly submitted and published on the order paper below the line. We will now move to motions without notice. I would like to inform you that in terms of the new standing rule of 150 pertaining to motions without notice, condolence and congratulatory were submitted to the Programming Authority prior to this plenary on the 30th of May 2023. Members are also reminded that motions without notice pertaining to congratulatory and condolence will not be allowed in the sitting that have not been processed by the Programming Authority. I have been informed that in the Programming Authority meeting of the 30th of May 2023, political parties did submit the names of honourable members in the desired order of speaking and who had wished to move a motion without notice in the standing sitting of this House. I will therefore, just for noting and for the purpose of minutes, call out the honourable members whose names have been accordingly submitted and approved. The following member motions have been approved by the Programming Authority: Honourable Bosman, Honourable Christians, Honourable Kama, Honourable Lacker, and Honourable Barnes. I now put the motions duly submitted and approved by the Programming Authority to the House. Are there any objections? No objections. Agreed to. The motions will appear in the minutes of the proceedings and in Hansard in the individual members' names as if that member had read them out aloud. I will now afford the opportunity to members to move motions without notice as per Standing Rule 152D. This could also include motions without notice that were not approved in the Programme Authority meeting. Members are reminded that 30 minutes as per the Standing Rule 152D will start now. I recognise the Honourable Kasim.
Thank you. I move without notice for the House to note that on the 16th of May 2023, elderly people went out in their numbers to picket outside Nyanga Clinic demanding better healthcare services such as adequate doctors and adequate supply of medicine. Further note that these elderly people have been subjected to long queues over the years, whilst there is also a high rate of medical files going missing in that specific clinic. And in conclusion, I'm concluding by asking that the Western Cape Department of Health to start having 24-hour clinics across the province, especially in townships and rural areas which continue to experience high demand of medical services. Such an initiative will also assist in making sure that residents do not queue the whole day in order to receive medical attention. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I recognise the Honourable Klaas. Is he online?
Yes, I'm online.
You may proceed, Honourable Klaas.
For the House to know that security of Tena is of paramount importance when it comes to security guards, cleaners, porters, temporary nurses, gardeners who work across different Western Cape government departments as outsourced workers. Further note that most of these workers are mostly denied access to loan and other benefits by mainstream financial sector markets for purpose of bonds and other needs. Incidentally, there too, due to lack of job security. Conclude by asking all Western Cape government departments to insource all workers falling in similar categories so that they can have security which allows to escape perpetual poverty.
Very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I recognise the Honourable Brinkhuis.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Speaker, I move without notice that the House notes that the outcome of the arbitration hearings of SAC Heathfield High School Principal Mr. Wesley Newman will be known within 1 week from now. Further note that Mr. Newman was victimized, harassed and sacked by the Western Cape Education Department for abiding by a school governing body's decision not to reopen the school during the first wave of COVID-19 in 2020. Further recognizes that the decision taken by Mr. Newman was in the best interest of the learners, educators, and the school community, considering the vast differences in resources and challenges from school to school. Further recognizes the solidarity and support displayed for Mr. Newman by the Special Action Committee, progressive educators, and the public at large. That this House joins the Special Action Committee in saluting Mr. Newman and his family for enduring this persecution from the Western Cape Education Department for more than 3 years. I so move. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I recognise the Honourable Kasim. One minute, if we can just, your microphone, please, can you begin again, just for the record purpose? Yes.
No problem. I move without notice that the House take note of the Andres Datani cleanup campaign introduced by the economic freedom fighters to keep communities clean in the whole of South Africa, including the Western Cape. And further note that the campaign was launched in response to failures by all spheres of government, including municipalities, which cannot execute the service delivery mandate of keeping communities clean by picking up waste. And conclude that in the Western Cape, the campaign has a positive impact, not only in keeping township communities clean, but also forcing DA around municipalities to execute these service delivery mandates. So I move.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No. No objections. Agreed to. Oh, you agreed. You're shaking your head. Sorry. No. There are objections. I recognise the objections, Honourable Bosman. Thank you. That motion will be printed on the order paper. I now recognise the Honourable Klaas.
Yes. That the House take notice of the recently released fourth quarter South African crime statistics covering the period of 1st January 2023 to 31st March 2023. Further note that Cape Town Central Police Station remains #1 in the country when it comes to stations with a high number of reported crime, while deaths also continue to remain at #3 in the country, high rate of death, with a MET ratio increased by 11.9 in the whole Western Cape province in the period under review. Concluded that Western Cape remains the crime capital of South Africa, as it is clear that the safety plan is useless. I support.
Thank you very much. Honourable Klaas, it was hardly audible, but I'm going to pose, are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There are objections. The motion.
Objection.
The motion will be printed on the order paper. I now recognize.
Object.
Thank you, honourable members. Order. I now recognize the Honourable America.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I move without notice, 1, that this House expresses profound sorrow and grief at the tragic loss of 5 innocent children who tragically lost their lives in a devastating car accident in Mitchell's Plain while on their way to school, as well as the young 12-year-old girl who was fatally hit by a car in Heideveld on Tuesday, 30th of May 2023. The knowledge that these precious lives could have been saved make these tragedies even more heart-wrenching. 2, the House deeply mourns the untimely death of these young souls and stands in solidarity with the grieving families who have been robbed of their beloved children. We offer our heartfelt support during this unimaginably difficult time. This House calls for collective efforts to strengthen the fight against the use of illegal school transportation vehicles. It is imperative that we take decisive measures to prevent further tragedies and ensure that this House urges that those found responsible for operating illegal school transport vehicles be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Holding these individuals accountable will serve as a deterrent and send a strong message that such reckless actions will not be tolerated. I so move.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without?
This House extends its heartfelt congratulations to the municipalities of Saldanha Bay, George, Mossel Bay, and Swartland for the remarkable achievement in securing their positions among the top 5 best-run municipalities in the entire country. Their dedication to effective governance and sound financial management deserves admiration and recognition. That this House takes note of Kannaland, Beaufort West, and Laingsburg municipalities who continue to fall behind. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections? There are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I now recognize the Honourable Kaiser Verlander.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I move that the House notes that today, 1 June, marks the annual celebration of World Milk Day. World Milk Day was established by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations in 2021 in recognition of the importance of milk as a global food. The day is also a celebration of the dairy sector. Pays special tribute to our dairy sector here in the Western Cape and recognizes that our province is home to more than 30% of the milk producers in South Africa. Notes that the sector is a R1 billion industry and a vital contributor to our agricultural economy. I so move, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. Are there no objections to the motion be moved without notice? No objections. Agreed to. I now recognize the Honourable Vimby. Is he online? Honourable Vimby? No. No one in his place. I'm going to move on. Okay. I recognize the Honourable
Deputy Speaker.
Are you there? You may proceed, Honourable Vimby.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Motion without notice that the House notes and is saddened by the death of 5 school children who passed away in the most tragic way. A bakkie that was transporting the children to school crashed into a bus. These problems speak to a bigger issue about accessibility of schools around our poor and working class areas where there are very little safety checks for various transport operators, and the DA government is doing very little in this regard. The House demands that the Western Cape Transport Department's law enforcement impounds all bakkies and unsafe schooler transport. We appreciate the driver being arrested and we hope justice is served. I so move, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable members, I know there's a lot of similar motions. I'm not going to rule on that, but I'm going to just pose to the House. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There are objections.
Objection.
There will be noted. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I recognise the Honourable Lecker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. That the House notes and notes the shock that Heslea High School in Cape Town is indoctrinating and publicly admits to influencing their learners on racism and prejudice against Palestinians. The House condemns the school and its management for encouraging its learners to join the Israeli Defense Force, who are currently killing innocent Palestinians and expanding a racist imperialist state. We call on the Premier to intervene on this matter.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I recognise the Honourable Sayed.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that the House notes the struggles of the poor and working class Bitterfontein community in the West Coast to keep their children in school due to learner transport challenges. The school in Niveris is 16 kilometers from Bitterfontein, and parents cannot afford to pay for the high transport to school, causing a very high dropout rate. The House calls on the Western Cape Education Department to make provisions for these learners as the matter has been brought to their attention. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion being printed on the order paper? Motion, my apologies. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objections? We've objected. The motion will be printed on the order paper. Thank you very much. I now recognise Honourable Sayed again.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes with serious concern the high number of applications for black children, African, coloured and Indian, that are being rejected by the so-called prestigious former Model C schools in the province. Notes further that as the ANC, we are already inundated by complaints from concerned parents, many of whom applied to 8 different schools and have been rejected by all 8 schools. This includes Mr. Adams, who applied to various public schools for his son, only to receive rejection letters for all of them. Mr. Adams says this outcome left him deeply troubled, and it raises serious concerns about the fairness and transparency of the application process. Mr. Adams, who resides 2.2 kilometers from Wynberg Boys and Wynberg Girls Junior School, has had applications for his daughter rejected by the girls' school, even though she is on top of a grade 4 class at Golden Grove and is actively participating in sports. Notes further that a similar case is that of Ms. Galada, a teacher by profession who applied timeously and correctly to 5 different schools and was rejected by all 5 schools. The first option was Ruval Primary School and the second was De Kalen Primary, both of which are within 5 minutes drive from her home, and 2 other schools that rejected her child are in Brackenfell. Notes further that she wrote to us seeking assistance, stating this application system is failing us as parents because I applied a day after the applications were opened in March and submitted all what was required, and yet my child has been rejected by all schools. Acknowledges that the online application system and admissions policies of schools, especially the former Model C schools, are used to discriminate and keep African, coloured and Indian learners out of the schools to keep the schools white, and calls on MEC Mania and Premier Windy to directly intervene and bring to an end this racist practice by schools to keep out black learners. This is why the ANC supports the Bella Bill to deal decisively with these discriminatory practices, a bill opposed by the racist DA and their bedfellows, the Freedom Front and the ACDP.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There are objections. Honourable members, 1 minute. Honourable Class, your hand is up. You can't have a point of order in a motion without notice. So, and then you were shouting. So can I just ask, do you have something pertinent to interrupt the honourable member on a motion without notice? Honourable Klaas?
Yes, that was something that is urgent. We, as a standing committee of the infrastructure, we
No,
are on
Honourable
the
Klaas,
road.
you don't have a right to describe, to explain, to defend in this part of the House, of the motions of the House. So you just need to vote.
For the apology.
No,
apology. It's just for the apology.
No, Honourable Klaas, sorry, apologies. I'm not going to accept that. So I'm just going to, for the record, say that there are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. Just give me a second. I now recognise the Honourable Baku Force.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I move motion without notice that the House notes the funding challenges faced by the Child Protection Service organization in the Western Cape. As the country commemorates Child Protection Week, Western Cape NGOs find themselves in a hopeless place. As the subsidies received by the NGOs from the Provincial Department of Social Development amount to a mere 42%, while they have to carry the burden of child protection services heavily on their backs. As seen in the media reports, Children's Institute senior researcher Lucy Jamieson said, in the Western Cape, NGOs render 55% of all child protection services, but they are required by law and service level agreements to deliver the same standard of care as the government for a fraction of the cost. Not only are these NGOs unable to do basic child services, they have to let go of staff because of budget constraints. We urge and demand Social Development MEC Shana Fernandez and her department to take a stand and do what is right to protect the children on the Western Cape. I so move.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objections. Agreed to. I recognise the Honourable Windvogel.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the ANC, I move without notice that the House notes will shock the rising violence, crime and murders in Swellendam, which is becoming a serious concern in the community as the people are not feeling safe. Note further that Lytton, September, an innocent young man fell victim to these crimes as he was brutally murdered in Seabrook and sadly became one of the many statistics amongst the young people killing each other in Swellendam. Amidst the ongoing murders of youth by other young people, that is becoming a norm in Swellendam, while the Western Cape Premier does not seem to care about the plight of victims of crime in the rural areas, as his so-called safety plan does not provide for the deployment of LEAP officers outside of the metro, and calls for an expansion of Windy's plan to also cater for areas outside of the metro so that victims of crime in areas like Swellendam can also feel safe. I so move.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion be moved without notice? No objections. Agreed to. I recognise the Honourable Windvogel.
Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the ANC, I move without notice that House notes and welcome the visit by ANC MPLs to Langa Day Hospital in Bondiville on Monday, where we saw for ourselves a number of serious challenges hampering service delivery in the facility. Notes further that many challenges at the facility were caused by the delays in the filling of critical posts, like that of the facility manager, which was only filled in January this year. And while many of other vacancies have been filled, we call on the provincial government to prioritize the filling of the help desk as well as the clerk vacancies. Further noted is the ANC, we are extremely concerned with the administration system at the hospital, which by management own admission is a bit of a mess, as patients also relying on the passage behind the pharmacy even in the pharmacy area, folders were disorganized. And as a result of this, the hospital has a big challenge of duplicate folders with some missing important patient history. Acknowledges that the challenge of the hospital, including long waiting hours at the facility, emanates from this poor filing system, which is as a result of delays by the provincial government to do the much important infrastructure development at the facility, which would include building a bigger and effective reception area, except that the poor services of the challenges at the hospital should be partly blamed on the DA government and not on the management, which is doing a good job under the circumstances, and calls on the provincial government to accelerate the infrastructure development and at the hospital, as well as for the standing committee to go on an official visit to the hospital soon. I so move.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion be moved without notice? No objections? Agreed to. I now recognise the Honourable Sayed.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House commemorates the 100th anniversary of the ending of the Irish Civil War and continues to call for the unity of all Republicans in Ireland. Calls on the Irish government to convene and resource a citizens' assembly on the unity of the Irish people to plan and prepare for constitutional change. Furthermore, encourages the Irish government to use its international diplomatic resources for a date for a unity referendum. Calls on all progressive international and political civic forces to support the process of constitutional change and the achievement of Irish unity. I so move.
Thank you very much. Will you move without notice? No, there are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. Honourable members, order. Honourable members, can we have some order, please? It is come to the end of this sitting. The business for the House is now adjourned. The Secretary will end the meeting and members will be exited. Thank you.